Make what the shoe.
Welcome to our regular meeting of council in person and live streamed electronically on Tuesday, August 6th, 2024. Just a reminder of August 11th, the Seniors Founders Day. Get your tickets this week. All ages are welcome. The Kids Club continues through August every Wednesday at Rosedale, 6 to 8 p.m. The Kingston Pen Tour tickets are up for sale. That date is October 5th. Comedy Hypnotist Show, October 4th at Rosedale Hall. Get your tickets. And final tax bills have been mailed. Opening of our meeting, land acknowledgement. The council and staff of the Township of Montague acknowledge that the sacred land on which the Township of Montague is now located and this meeting is being held is the ancestral and unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe Nation. We'll have a moment of silence. Thank you. So moved by Councillor Abbas and seconded by Councillor Crabtree that the regular meeting of council agenda dated August 6, 2024 be amended this date to move information items A, B, C, D, and F to action items. All in favor? And that's carried. Disclosure of interest now or at any point during our meeting. Moved by Councillor Crabtree and seconded by Councillor Johnson. The minutes of the previous meeting dated June 18th, 2024 be approved as presented. All in favor? And that's carried. Any business arising from our previous? Okay. No delegation or deputations. So we'll start on our report of officers. Our first report is from Public Works Manager regarding Birchill Culvert Contract. Ian?
So this is a report about the Birchill Road culvert. Public Works staff is recommending that council award the contract for the replacement of the Birchill Road culvert to Tackberry Construction, and that the purchase of the corrugated steel pipe barge from Atlantic Industries is approved, and that the project will be funded from savings on the 2024 capital road projects, which were already allocated to the budget. So as per the report from the last council meeting on June 18th, an RFQ was posted to Badingo for the install only of either the option of either a steel culvert or a concrete culvert. We got back 5 submissions, and Tackberry was the lowest bidder for both steel or concrete. So the supply of the culvert, we received multiple quotes for both concrete and steel, and the quotes came back significantly lower for steel compared to concrete. Around 140,000 was the lowest price for concrete, and 41,000 was the lowest price for the steel pipe. So the total project cost estimated after both install and supply of the culvert is around 40%. The steel is 40% the cost of the concrete. So speaking with the project manager from the lowest bidder, they thought a 3 to 4 day road closure would be needed. And so I've already contacted the bus company about dealing with the road closure and any issues with that. So the replacement culvert will be the same size as the existing culvert, but 2 meters longer, but same span and height. And according to the suppliers, the steel culvert depending on the water quality and soil chemistry, they can have a service life of up to 100 years, which is what they say is the service life for concrete culvert. So the options, recommended option, the council award the contract to Tackberry and Sons Construction with the provisional Schedule C for the steel culvert option, and the council approved the purchase of the culvert from Atlantic Industries. Option 2 would be that council approve the council award the culvert install contract still to Tackberry, but for provisional Schedule B, which would include the install of the concrete culvert, which would be supplied by Rinker Materials for $143,000. $17. Now, we had substantial savings this year on capital projects, which more than cover the cost of the total steel culvert contract between the King of Matheson rehab and the microsurfacing on the McPherson Road. A total of around $150,000 savings compared to the budget. So that would cover the cost of the project if we went with the steel.
Put it up for questions.
I mean, obviously, the steel it's crazy because I mean, we did Richardson Road, like the pricing was between steel and cement was very similar. And it's amazing that there's a humongous difference. Steel as well, it's kind of crazy. But is there any other fees that we have to pay, any permit fees or anything else on top of this too as well?
Yes, there would be a permit for the culvert replacement. I still don't have the final pricing back from the RVCA, but there'll have to be a permit for a culvert replacement from the RVCA, which shouldn't be an issue because it is a like for like replacement, which typically goes through pretty smoothly.
Those are one of my gripes too as well, because like we're replacing a culvert that needs to be done in a roadway, but we still have to go to RVCA and pay them a fee for, I'm not even too sure for what, but this is not on you, but it's one of those things I like to bring up in these sort of circumstances where I understand the RVCA and everything, the good things that are done, but why we're paying any type of permit to them for replacing a culvert that's already there. Sometimes baffles my mind, but anyway, so that's kind of my second note that I was going to bring. Paying the necessary fees. Anyways, I think this is the right thing to do, and it's good that we have some savings to make it work, so.
It's good that we're going with the steel option and considering it's basically the same lifespan and the cost savings. Good.
So I'll bring up the fee thing when I'm at my next RVCA meeting, because I find it odd. You'd have to pay again, especially when we pay them on a yearly basis, like already. So.
And it's for everything that we replace in culverts, that kind of stuff. I was saying that earlier, Ian, even at the county, like they try to bulk things together sometimes to try to make it so they one fee for basically replacing the exact same thing that they're. So I'd say,
Well, we'll bring it up and ask why
doing
you
that?
get multiple things.
If it's not a change.
Yeah.
It's
It's a replacement.
If we're doing a patch install, we still have to pay. Yeah, I'm just asking, being devil's advocate. We were doing a patch, would we have to pay? So if you're replacing, let's say, cutting in a hole on the top, replacing just so there is no, and I'm not saying suggest by any means that we do that. I'm just saying it's about the same amount of work. The same amount of things, the only thing is you're not pulling out the whole cover, you're pulling off all the gravel on top, putting on a piece of metal on top, and then closing it back up, which you still have to pay for.
I wouldn't think so.
So you know what I mean? It's like you're doing the
Yeah.
same amount of work. But we don't have to pay for that. So it's kind of like, why are we? But anyway.
Thanks, yeah.
So moved by Councillor Johnson and seconded by Deputy Farrell. Council award the contract for the replacement of virtual road culvert to GTAC Berry and Sons Construction Company Limited, and that council approved purchase of CSPA from Atlantic Industries Limited, and that the project be funded from the savings on the 2024 capital project already allocated in the 2024 budget. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you, Ian. Next is our shipping tank replacement.
Thank you, Chair. So this is in front of you this evening because our current water tank for the Public Works Department is substantially leaking all over everything. So the tank has had some work done. So at the end of the 2023 season, early 2024, there was some refurbishing of the tank in certain areas, but now it's leaking in other areas. We're not even sure of the age of the tank because it's actually not sitting on our TCA or tangible capital asset listing. So it's a steel tank, unknown age. We're giving vehicles on the other side of the road car washes as we drive by. So this is basically to come forward and say, we need to move forward with a poly tank that slips right into our tandem truck. So there is photos of what we're looking for. So there are two options. There's the gravity feed, which is what we currently have. And then there's the double bar pressurized system. So it's only $2,000 difference between the two, but with the pressurized system, we'd obviously be able to, when we're doing road sweeping and stuff, have the pressurized system to really wash the roadways and things like that. We would also get it hooked up that in the event of an emergency or looking in the growth and grand scheme of things and with any kind of environmental changes, especially with the number of wildfires and things like that, that fire could also use this as a tanker to hook onto. So the current tank goes into the 2011 truck that we have. We'd be putting it into the 2016 because it's an automatic. So any of the fire department that has your DZ would be able to drive and function with that truck as well. So yeah, it's really replacing what we have with something that's new, but it's also going to be a bit of an up service in the sense that it will have that pressurized bar and do a better job. Because we did the sweeping ourselves this year and we didn't receive any complaints. So if we did the sweeping ourselves and then had this with the pressurized system behind it, we may not even need to get the sweeping in the spring. Depending.
At all.
Depending, yeah.
It's like 5,000-ish contract.
So it's been about like $2,000-$2,500. Once the town of Smith Falls no longer did it, it was about $1,200 when they did it. So it's been a little bit, but I think that in any case, it's always good if we can functionally do it ourselves as well. So my recommendation to council is that we do move forward. Again, we have savings in our public works capital items. Some of them are road work, but we do have reserves as well to move forward. And to be honest, if it's similar to last year with how well our investments are doing with interest, we'll also have interest revenue that we're accounting for.
Gerald?
What's the likely lifespan of this new system? Is there an approximate ballpark?
So again, it's gonna depend on everything, right? So if we get new buildings and it's stored inside, because it's poly, so obviously it's not gonna want to sit outside all the time. So if it's kept inside and things like that, we'd be looking at, I don't know, 25 plus years, depending on how
So essentially, if we just did the cleaning, it would pay for it.
over time, yeah.
Over time.
But we do use it for all the gravel application, like we use it quite a bit. And with us keeping that extra tandem truck that we have decided to do, this truck could be functionally just set up all summer. Right? So it could be ready to roll for, like we said, if fire needed it or any other issues. If we have a really dry year, we need to water some roadways on a Thursday before the weekend, things like that. Again, it's one of those things that we need the tool. Our current tool is done. And that we're recommending moving forward with a more modernized version.
I think we should just go ahead and get it. It's a tool we need. It would be more versatile than what we have before. And I don't want my car washed when I go. No, we're not gonna charge it.
Oh, they always agree. Oh. I appreciate the, I think all accounts of the video early, like, you know, really showing the spilling it, so I didn't know how we make it the job site, just selling water as well, so it's like. Is that, if the pressurized system were to fit, does it still work gravity fed?
I would have to double check on that, because I'm not sure.
Not that it's a deal breaker, but it just means like,
Yeah.
saying that stuff knows that it still works regardless, so.
Yeah.
So, I think I agree with everybody else, I think it's I think we need it, so. We've done everything, we put the other one along as far as we can.
Yeah, like we could try and rehab it again and then it wears, because it's steel and it's wearing in different places. And we could be right back,
That's just
Another
good money extra.
$4,500 again. Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, we will surplus it though, and we'll put it out. If somebody is handy and they want to refurb it, they can, I guess.
So moved by Deputy Reed Carroll and seconded by Councillor Avanas, that council approve option 1 for the replacement of the water tank with the tandem truck. And the council approves the use of public works reserves for the purchase of the tank if no surplus in 2024 is available. And further, the council deems the steel water tank as surplus equipment when the replacement of the tank occurs. All in favor? Carried. Next is our Seniors Active Living Centers Program Expansion 2024.
Thank you, Chair. So this is a report for council, similar to the one that you received in 2023, to continue to work together with our senior group. And we'd apply for a Senior Active Living Center program expansion. That would mean that on an annual basis, we would have funds similar to what we've been applying to every year. But this would be more of a guaranteed as long as you provided your reporting and things like that. It would be an annual thing. Once you get into it, it's great as long as you do your reporting and things like that. So it wouldn't be the great big applications that we're doing right now, but it would continue that type of effort. So my recommendation, we did start in the 2024 budget year. We set aside the $5,000 to continue the senior programming. And then we were fortunate enough to get the senior grant again this year. So my recommendation is for council that you do provide support for us to apply to this. I think it's a really good thing. Our population is aging. More than 49% of our population is 55 plus. And that we continue to work with the Forget Me Not Club in relation to this, but that if we would have a bigger budget to be able to provide more or different types of things. If successful.
Any questions, comments?
Seems like a no-brainer thing to do.
If you're gonna get that much money, you only chip in that little bit.
Yeah.
In order to do great things in your community. I mean,
Oh,
like,
exactly.
you don't say, but I think it's great things.
I think we've been doing a great job just making sure that the money's there anyways. Now you have potential more, and it's benefiting, those of a greater age. I think it's wonderful and they might need it.
Also, staff as well for looking at these opportunities to make it happen. That's exactly what we're trying to do and make it even better. And we're seeing that and feeling that over the last couple of years as far as all of this kind of coming together in the community and really enjoying it. So I mean, obviously this is the right thing, so keep going. So this is great.
So moved by Councillor Abbas and seconded by Councillor Crabtree that council direct staff to submit a proposal for the Senior Active Living Center program expansion with the support of the Montague District Seniors Forget Me Not Club Inc. That council provide a commitment of in lieu contributions of $10,000 and a minimum of in cash contributions of $5,000 for the Senior Active Living Centers program if successful in the application. All in favor? That's carried. Sorry, I put a check mark here. The next one is the municipal complex board. Thank you. Thank you. Magic one, yeah.
Thank you, Chair. So this is the municipal complex is coming back before council. Just give a bit of background. On March 19th of this year, we brought an update in the municipal complex with a Class B estimate that was substantially higher than what we could afford, to be honest. And then on June 18th, we brought forward another update to council saying basically where we were at in the process, that we had 8 pre-qualification submissions, 6 met the requirements, tenders were out on bid and go June 6th. A mandatory site meeting was held here on June 10th with 5 of the 6 qualified contractors attending, so only the 5 could submit tender. With the tender process, we had 4 submissions from the 5 qualified. And we did hire CKA back in 2022 or 2023 in different phases. So CKA is Colburn Campbell Architects, which has been working with us since 2023. So they did the schematic design, the design development, construction of the documentation phase, the tender phase. And then if this is approved by council, they'll also do the construction contract administration and post-construction. Now, they did work with all of staff as far as fire and public works and myself in relation to the design and what we have come to a conclusion on this in relation to the complex. So we did receive the tenders. It was to close on July 11th. It got postponed to July 16th. And we received 4 bids. So including non-recoverable HST, our construction was the lowest at just under 6.5 million, with the others coming in about 7.5 to 7.6. The low bid did not include any kind of contingencies or change orders. So it is recommended that we do obviously account for contingencies and some change orders. I'll speak about a couple of them this evening. So each bidder did have to provide who their subs were. So I've listed who the subs were listed for Argue Construction. There's no concerns as far as municipality is concerned in relation to previous work with any of these people not meeting requirements. So the tender document also didn't include, and the reason that it didn't is because when we got our original Class D and Class B estimates, because of the cost, take on some of the project ourselves in relation to preparing for it, to save some money. So example is the purchase of 1,000 kilowatt generator for the building. What was originally estimated and what we got for actual quotes was substantially less. So we said, well, we can just supply it and order it ourselves. There's no markup, as opposed contractors not marking up another contractor's markup. Moving and removing this picnic shelter out front, and it's going to stay out front, but just be moved in a different location. Moving the white storage building, because we'd like to keep it up for storage through the winter if our public works building's coming down, as well as the red building. Office furniture and training room furniture, we can order that ourselves and bring that in. The IT costs, we work with the county, so we wanted to make sure that it was reflective of what the county needs us to have, so they're going to do that. The alarm system, again, Advanced Alarms does our buildings. They're going to look after that in that building. Temporary storage solutions we need to think of, and we have a couple of ideas in relation to that as well. A new heavy duty air compressor, we can order that ourselves. We don't need a contractor to do that. Benches and storage units for the public works garage, they can get that organized and sorted out once the building would be, we'd be moving in. Fire washing machine and drying rack. We're actually applying for grants for those things. So we didn't even put a price in here. We're hoping that we will be successful in some grant applications. Hydro One permit costs are unknown at this time. And then temporary power to the salt shed and outlet, so that our public works trucks can get plugged in over the winter because they won't have a building. And then moving the plumbing and the well from, because our current well for this building runs through the public works building, then over to this building. So we have to move so that the well connects to this building and move the softener and the pressure tank over into this building, because that will no longer be servicing that building. The new well out front will be servicing that building. So these were not included. And we feel like us probably taking on a lot of these things ourselves, we're going to save substantial money, but we do need council to approve the use of some funds so that we can get these things moving as well. So we're estimating about, with a 20% contingency, about 441,000. It may not be that much. We just need to have some funds so that we can get these things moving, because they will hold, we don't want to hold anybody up. So included in that is the cost for the contract administration, which council has already approved, and we've set some of the reserves aside to pay for Holmberg Campbell Architects. Those numbers are in here as well, in relation to them looking after the contract. So during construction, I think it's pretty important to note that there's going to be disruptions of service. No different than when we did the floors in here and the windows. So the sign at the roadway and the lights will not be lit up because, again, like a maze, they're fed through the public works garage out to the picnic shelter out there, and all that power is going to be cut off. So we're going to be down that sign and things until everything's hooked back up. Public works operation will obviously be without a regular shop for the entirety of the construction. So they may have additional overtime or hours in the winter to come in, clean their trucks off, get them started, get them heated. Because normally they prep, if they know there's a snowstorm, they have it ready to go first thing soon to get it, right? That's going to be different. Even just some general maintenance things that they do, if they don't have a shop, they may not be able to. We may have to some things like that. And then again, looking after the temporary power and how that can. So we definitely realize that this project is the largest that this township has taken on. And there's a number of moving parts. Some disruptions are going to happen, and we can't do anything different than that. But we still recommend that we move forward with this. The estimated timeline for construction is August 2024 to September 2025, or approximately 57 weeks if everything goes as planned and as scheduled. So there are a few recommendations here with the recommended being moving forward, and awarding the contract to Argue, establishing, directing myself to establish a borrowing bylaw with Infrastructure Ontario, because that would be who we would have our debenture with in the end. And then also allowing us up to 441,000 to do the township responsibility items, as we go through. So, in the financial implications, you will see a tendered amount of about 6.5, contingency of 20%, 1.3, and then our township responsibilities for a total of approximately 8.241. Again, this, all of the borrowing that I presented to you this evening, or most of it, was based on an 8.5 million, just so we can see what that would look like. At the time that I did this report, Infrastructure Ontario was, the 20-year loan was 4.66, but since that, it's gone down 4%. And it is looking as if those projected interest rates are going to go down even further. So by the time we go to lock that in next October or November, it may even be lower than that, which would just be beneficial to us in our payment costs. So I don't think I'm gonna go line by line on the financial breakdowns, because again, they're a high level look at it right now, but just it's kind of showing council that we already in 2024 in our budget said, okay, we need a 3.5% increase to start putting towards that debenture payment. We did that. And to continue to do that over the next couple of years, and that we can afford. And because we've had substantial surplus and gains on our investment, interest money, we've been able to also increase our general admin reserve for this building by almost $400,000 over the last 2 years, which we were not accounting for. So that's also good. And again, if this is approved by council to move forward, as we get closer to, and as we go through some of the milestones, I'll bring updated financials, updated information, and where we're looking and what things are looking like on a regular basis. But on a high level, we can afford this project. We couldn't afford the way it came into Class D or Class B. And as per our annual payment limit that is attached to this report as well by the province, we're still well under our borrowing. So in the event that we needed to borrow for anything else, we still have some substantial borrowing power, even though we're taking on this loan for future. So attached to this report is the exterior. Colors still need to be chosen. So if you looked at it and said, I don't like the red, except what I did, those colors are not chosen. So we're going to be given samples, and that's where council will also be brought in. There's going to be the sample colors, all those things will still need to be chosen. It's just, they just did a draft of what it kind of looked like. And the site plan and the building, all of that is included. Now, with that, there are some things that we're already seeing because the pricing came back substantially better than we were anticipating. The well that was drilled out front was originally thought that it would supply enough water for this building, and it will, but whenever they do the calculation to wash the trucks, they deem that it'd be necessary for us to put in a 30,000 liter cistern. It's going to be on the fire side. So because they already have a cistern in there, during the original iteration of this, we took out the fire cistern that would have been there for them to pump from a standpipe, similar to a dihydrant. So now we've asked that they put in a standpipe and that we'd also be able to pull from that cistern for fire. So it'll do a dual purpose for us. It'll be like a holding for fire and for washing the trucks. So that'll be a change. Shouldn't be a huge cost though, but it'll be a change. Some of our drains were to go through the septic. We changed that. We didn't like it. We're going to put in a bigger pipe that will take all of the downspout and all of the gray water material that goes through the oil separator. And we're going to increase the pipe size from a 250 mil to a 300 mil and pump it out where the rest of the site water was going to be going. And in the original drawings, again, because we were trying to save money, whenever you look at the plan, this little bit of asphalt out here was to stay. But if we're still in good shape come that time of that site, we're probably going to get pricing to just redo all of the asphalt so that it's all fresh and clean. But we'll wait until that time when site comes. for those types of things. So I guess, I just want council to be aware that we're going to have some changes. It's a build. We did in the tender, we did try to set aside and even get pricing for, because we're not sure exactly how much rock X we're gonna need to do. So the tender allowed for some, and then we got a per unit price in case we have to do any extra. So we did do some geotechnical testing ahead of time to have somewhat of an idea, but it's possible. So we're not exactly sure. So we went ahead and got the per unit pricing to try and eliminate any kind of huge changes like that or big costs that they could have later. Any questions? Yes.
We'll open it up to questions.
I got two questions. I went over these plans for several, I didn't understand, some of you don't know. One question was 800 amp service compared to say the 600 amp. Is there a reason we're going to 800 amps?
Sure. So
No?
yep, so, Chair for you, so the current, what, so I don't know if I said that. So in the building, it accounted for what is currently going to be in there. It works out to be 594 amps with the calculation by the electrical engineer. And that doesn't account for our, drying unit for the suits and potential, so we did increase, the concrete floor and put in a post hoist eventually in the garage as well. So it was calculated at 594. So I believe the calculation, Jim, you might be able to tell me on this one, is like 1.25 times. So then the 800 amp is what is allocated for the building based off of what was determined.
No, that makes sense.
Okay.
And the other question, I know when we started, it was more bays, and I know we cut back to try and save some money that we can afford it. Is there enough bays for the fire department and the work site? Like, is there enough that they're gonna be adequate for a few years? Are we gonna be in 3 or 4 years, too many vehicles inside of what we got?
Chair through you. Public Works and Fire were included in the full layout of this building because it's their building, right? So, it is adequate for what they need. The ones that came off were the wash bays. And if you look at the current site plan, the way it is now, the chief actually wanted the parking beside the fire hall for all their spaces. So that's where the wash bay would have been. And then we'd have to try and find parking now somewhere. So, it's adequate for now, keeping in mind that we also have 5 bays, attached. So like the vintage fire truck will probably stay in this garage as opposed to being in their everyday garage, right? Because it's not going up to falls anymore. So, it would stay here.
No, that's fine. Just wanted to make sure.
Yeah.
Enough there. That's good. Thank you.
Yes, when it comes to the cost of borrowing, and you have a proportional increase in the tax fund for the 5-year period. So when will we know sort of what our interest rates are gonna be like? Are we talking about November, December? We'll have a better guess at what the rates have dropped to, because they all seem to be going down.
Yeah.
So the amount of interest we're gonna pay is gonna go substantially down if we
Yeah.
lose a point or so off the interest rate. So when will we sort of have those figures?
So we can't lock in our interest until the project's done.
Okay.
So once the project's done, so in that time, we'll have a borrowing, like they'll give us a construction loan
Like a
basically.
bridge?
Yeah, and then once the project is completed, they will lock us in.
Okay.
So we won't know the actual interest rate because it goes day to day. I can check it every single, right?
Just-
So until we are done, so let's say everything's perfect, September, October, we'll know. But again, if we know in September that in 2 weeks or 3 weeks, they're planning on dropping a 1/4% again, you can just wait. Right? So we just have to keep an eye on that as well, to lock that in because it will make a huge difference.
Yeah, and that's when do we have to lock it in? What was the last moment that we could wait till?
So you have 2 years after completion of the project with Infrastructure Ontario to lock in. Usually if interest rates are decent, you don't
Yeah.
want to take the chance that COVID happens again and then.
Yeah. Okay.
Any other questions?
Just a couple comments, like, listen, like we've been doing this for a few years now, and I think there's been a lot of, going back and forth, trying to figure out what the best idea was. We had thrown the design build idea there too as well, which, obviously like the direction that we're going now is a lot more economical because staff is able to help maybe keep control of the cost of everything else. I think if we would have went a different direction, earlier, we would have been spending a lot more. So I kudos, obviously Allison and staff, because they're looking at every avenue to make sure that this makes it, economical for us to be able to do this. And it's a need that we need to as well. So I think that's the biggest thing. And I really implore, that anybody that's out there that has any questions or concerns, if you don't want rumors to go out there, like the work that's been done behind this, and also like to make sure that the costing and everything is going forward. You don't see this a lot in municipal world. A lot of times it's like we put it out there and we kind of hope we deal with the change orders. We don't want to deal with, there's certain municipalities that we know that they're like run through that, started a project 2 years ago, $18 million over budget. And all of those sort of problems that can come up. We have other municipalities that happen in our county too as well, that things have gone up substantially. So I think this is a really good, we've really kind of gone through this the right process to make sure that we can do this, and it's part of the money's there for it too as well, and also that we're on top of every cost that can be doing. I think getting all those extra those things ourselves really makes a big difference too as well. So I think that's the biggest thing for me, is that I don't have a lot of questions, because I think I've asked for a million questions through this whole process to get to this point, and I'm glad that we're getting numbers back that are not what the Class D and Class B were showing us, because that was very discouraging at that point, and I think all of council recognized that too as well, that those numbers are not realistic. But keeping the sort of the things to the grindstone and making sure that we went through the process to get to here shows that like the bids, I think, also showed that they saw the organization of what we were bringing forward. And that really helped with making sure the bids were aggressive. So I think really this is great. It sounds like we're all on board for going forward and going ahead. But I think the biggest thing I got to stress, if there's anybody out there that has questions or concerns, let's stop any mills and make sure that we are staying ahead of it, because what we have done is the right thing through this process too as well. So those are kind of my comments. Kudos to staff. I think this is great.
Sorry, just one more question. Just a confirmation. Did you say that we still have borrowing power even though we're going to do this?
Yeah. So, if you look at our annual repayment limit, it's set by the province. If we take at a 5% interest rate over 20 years, we can borrow almost 13.5. So we still have that cushion, for no better terminology, to be honest. And as our tax levy goes up, so does our borrowing.
Yeah.
Because it's based off of how much we actually collect. So that comes up as well. So yeah, we did not want to put us in a position where we didn't have borrowing power. So we're still sitting even at the 8.5 with potentially, and that's based on current.
Okay.
Well, actually last year's.
Last year's.
Yeah. So we still have the borrowing in relation to that.
Yeah, I would just, so we have that cushion that, let's say something happens to one of the bumpers or something like that, we can go out immediately and get something and not hamstring ourselves.
Keep in mind that we're also not using all our reserves. We still have our reserves. We still have all those things. So we're not draining reserves and we're not borrowing money to the point where we're broke. So we're still sitting in a decent financial position. To be honest, we're probably in absurdity as far as municipalities go, that we have nothing borrowed.
Yeah. Could comment on that, but it's in good shape.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
The only other thing is that I remember a while back, Councillor Johnson had mentioned we not put up potentially another term. I know I spoke to Debbie Reed today about it. So when I'm speaking about some of the temporary thing and things like that for the winter, and also the moving, the intent was to keep the rec building that's out here and move it. The rec rooms aren't high enough for any public works stuff to go in. We've already outgrown it. So we're gonna have a cost to do that, put a foundation. So I am getting pricing to potentially get a 40 by 80 tarp. It's gonna go over Raven on this side. So basically the building and stuff only sitting on this, so it'd be over, we have a section in behind.
Okay.
So I am gonna get pricing on that, because if that makes the most sense, we'll bring a report to council, it'll all be done by council, but then it's allowing us to grow. Right, so, the things like the sweeper, which has hydraulic hoses, the poly tank, all those things that don't need to be in a heated shop can be in that back,
Yeah.
part. So we're gonna get pricing to see what makes the most sense as far as that goes, but we will bring something back, it's just I don't have the pricing yet. But whenever I do, I will bring it back. I just think that if we're going to talk about growth and preparing ourselves and kind of setting Public Works and Fire up for the next 15, 20 years, if we do it all at once, it might be.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I mean, I was saying that,
Oh, sorry.
the other part, when it was discussed in there, but we're not gonna go ahead with it, and I know we had discussed it too as well, because I'm like, why are we not going at it? Or why are we not looking at it? Because I think that's storage thing, and you brought it up too as well, because I think having that storage is something that we've always talked about when we had the red and the white sheds. We had to knock one down already. We know how old those things are. And going forward, and you know, so I'm glad that we're looking at that. Like we kind of have taken it off the capital project, whatever they have to say, like we're maybe not going ahead, but I think it's advantageous for us to be looking at. It's like you brought it up to as well, but about making sure we have the right storage, and that will be like a very cost effective way and the right thing to do. So I'm like, I look forward to looking at that pricing as we go, and I won't bring it up at the next part.
Yeah, because I think it's important to note that not everything needs to be in a heated shop.
Yeah.
all the time. So, but equipment is not getting cheaper. Everybody has seen how it's gone up. So it is nice to be able to keep it in as best condition as we can, for a long time. Well,
I did want to say, I did go through the contract and I even went through line by line on pricing. It's very aggressive. It's very well planned out. It's very good pricing as far as the numbers I can see on. They did a good job. I understand for a lot of people in the township, it's a lot of money. Ideally, we would have done this 5 years ago. It wasn't in the cards, it didn't work out, there's a bunch of things that didn't happen. If we don't do it now, we do it another 2 years from now, it'll be up another 2.5 million. So we either have to do it or pray that we can have somebody give us a lot of money later on. So I think this is going to be the most beneficial. We need to do something. And the Band-Aid approach is not going to work any longer. And by the way that I was lined up with we're in really good shape to do so without having huge increases to our tax rate. So I think you guys have done a fantastic job. And I do believe this is right.
So I'll speak to council. Thank you very much for everything you have done. I heard from everybody as well. You've done, staff have done, you've all worked together to make this work for our residents, which is great because it is definitely needed. It's been talked about for a long time and Band-Aids have been done and we're at the point where the Band-Aids aren't staying anymore and we do have to do it. And you've brought us what I think is the best option that we could possibly think of. And thank you for everything again and to you, Anna. Yeah.
We're a team, we're gonna be a team on this one, folks.
Yeah. So moved by Councillor Crabtree and seconded by Councillor Johnson, that council award the construction project RQ Construction in the amount of $6,498,037, including non-recoverable HST, and that council direct staff to begin the process to establish a borrowing bylaw for construction costs, and that council approves the purchasing of up to $441,000 for the township responsibility items as presented in this report. All in favor? It is carried. Yep. So now we'll move on. Report. Moved by Councillor Johnson, seconded by Deputy Reid Carroll, the council approved the minutes of the committee of the whole meeting of June 18th, 2024, and approved the recommendations contained within. All in favor? It's carried. Moved by Deputy Ruth Carroll and seconded by Councillor Abbas, that council approve the minutes of the MRCC meeting of June 27th, 2024, and approve the recommendations contained within. All in favor? That's carried. Am I able to comment to say that was a great summer party that the MRCC did put on, and thank you very much. That was great.
I was gonna say that it was one of the, great party and
Yeah.
great event that they did. So.
Yeah, fabulous idea from the July 1st committee. That was fabulous. Moved by Councillor Abbas, seconded by Councillor Crabtree, that council approve the minutes of the American Library Board meeting of May 22nd, 2024 as information. All in favor? That's carried. There are no petitions, no bylaws, no motion, notice of motion, correspondence, or action item. Moved by Councillor Crabtree and seconded by Councillor Johnson, that council support the canal pursuit and direct staff to share social medias on the canal pursuit. All in favor? Information items. We went to 8, which is the request to purchase road allowance.
I was throwing up there because, and I'm gonna, to Kirsten say something real quick, but I mean, it's a request that came to us and I always wanted to know if it was from our, but I think Kirsten may have the best opportunity to give us like a 30 seconds. Maybe, we'll see.
30 seconds, we're good. Okay, so I didn't prepare a report on this one. I did have a conversation with the clerk and we discussed the request. So essentially, this property that the applicant owns is a vacant piece of property. It's fronts on Rideau Avenue. And it's within the MMS overlay. So basically that means that it's not a developable property. If it doesn't already have structures on it that are connected to well and septic, then you can't really do anything with it. The zoning is dual. It's part general residential with a small odd portion of it that's zoned rural. So our official plan also says that development on the periphery of Smiths Falls is to remain status quo. So basically no new development that would require servicing. This particular road allowance that runs along the side of this property extends from Wellington Street to Rideau Avenue. And I'm not sure the intention of when everything was laid out there, but there are 8 properties that are vacant, little residential lots. I use air quotes because they're vacant, but small residential lots that if down the road they did extend servicing over from Smiths Falls, those would be 8 residential lots. If we close that road allowance and convey it, then none of those lots would have any road frontage whatsoever. So they would never be able to be developed ever. So my thought is that this wouldn't be an appropriate parcel of land for council to close and convey to the adjacent landowner. Essentially, you'd be just adding more property that couldn't be developed anyway. But if council does wish a report to be prepared and brought back with more details, I'm happy to do that. But this just kind of came in and we wanted to get it on the agenda. So if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Yeah, these 6 parcels of land that you said that could eventually be built up on Bullet. Smith Falls ever extend services. Who owns those 6? Are they owned by the public or?
So there are 8 parcels and they are owned by individual ratepayers. They're vacant lots, not developed. Now, I believe a majority of them I'm not familiar with what the next street over is, sorry. But they have frontage on another lot. So basically they have 2 lots and the front half is built on and then the back lot is vacant. So you're kind of using the term hamstringing, 8 potential property developments if you close this road allowance.
So upsetting.
Well,
8 individuals.
I mean, we can never say whether or not those services will be extended. We can't offer any potential timeline. Maybe it will never happen, but if it does, then there's 8 properties that wouldn't have any frontage and therefore not be developable.
I think that's
That's
really.
Okay.
I think that's just, I think that really answers the debate, but I think we, we asked the question and I don't think, in going forward, we have to be really very cautious anytime we want to do stuff. So I'd say, I mean, obviously this is something that is not one that is an easy pie to slice. So yeah, I think, but I think it's good that we acknowledge it, but also at the same time, like recognizing that it's probably the advantageous for the country.
So staff will communicate with the letter writer, just let them know that that's not something we're gonna be supporting at this time. Thank you.
Will be the council media review.
I'm gonna go through some of these a little, fairly quick.
BCD.
Because there's a whole bunch in there. And that's also because the county takes August off, like we do too as well. And there's, we kind of close up a few things too as well. The first one is talking about obviously the gap, the small gap project. Apparently we're getting better and better and we're getting closer to a lot more. I think that's kind of important to know that hopefully over the next couple of years, we're going to see that final leap over for that to get better service and everything else from our cell gap. The big one is the growth management study received, and that was a big part that we had a huge part of that, and that's understanding the growth of our county, when it also breaks down to all of our townships. So we have growth numbers also that the county does for us, so we understand where our growth kind of goes and what we're looking at and what we can sort of like anticipate for what our population is going to look like. I mean, if you look at what they're talking about, in the next 25 years, we're going to go right now. The county's around 70,000. We're going to go to maybe 106, 107,000. So it's a pretty good, substantial increase. And we have our breaking down numbers too as well that we can look at. So I think that's it's good to look at that. The other side too, as well as we look at that growth management stuff too as well. I've always been critical of it because we did it, over the years. We said that they're always undershooting a lot of the things. The one that they did 5 years ago was completely wrong. Now, I mean, it's COVID hit, but there was obviously a big increase in our county too as well. So we're going to see a county that's going to grow, and we're going to be part of that too as well. So like making sure that we're prepared for that. So I think understanding our growth strategy and our growth and what that looks like is very, very important for all of us to really know. And if you want more of those numbers too as well, we can definitely get those down to you too as well. When I go into the next one, there's a few things in there about the audit report. They also do want to bring up the Elmont paramedic base. That's one that actually was a lot more controversy than it should have been. But basically there was a fire about 1.5 years ago at the Elmont base and it burnt down. And they were looking at adding an extension onto it. And basically it's a $700,000 project that we're talking about what we're building out there. It's building on a secondary garage that's disaster relief and everything else, but it's still a $700,000 addition. But it's also to make sure that it's good that we went forward with that because those are growth areas too as well to make sure that we're prepared for that. But I think it's kind of I want to bring that up more in the sense of like it's a small garage and that's still costing $700,000. That's in addition to something that's being rebuilt and that's just being added on as like an extra piece. That just shows you that the costs that are out there. I think it also shows the competitive pricing that we got for our building that's going to be 10 times bigger than what that is. So we talked about community grants too as well, and I think that's an important one too as well because there's a big focus on the tourism and equity, diversity, inclusion is where a lot of that goes. I do want to bring up rural FASD that we have in Montague. That's one of our, it's probably one of it's a very good group, one of the biggest in Canada as far as dealing with people with health syndrome and advocating for it too as well. There's a lot of stuff that we can help push at the county to help, continue with that group to do what they're doing with that inclusion. And that's what a lot of what they push for. So I think there's a lot of things that kind of come back to groups that come from Montague that we can help in the grant sort of system as we go into the county. The county gives, like we have obviously what we give for community grants. The county has, obviously they're bigger. There's some substantial money that can help out for a lot of those groups out there. A couple of the ones we set support for, which is huge, setting support for family and children's services. We all know about CAS. We all know what's going on. We know the increase in unfortunately a lot of the trauma that's going on out there with kids. We've seen a decrease in the amount of money that CAS is going. We're seeing a lot of situations out there that are very heartbreaking. I know being part of that system and fostering in the past too as well. I have a pretty good understanding of where their finances are and how the cuts have been negatively affected and also where a lot of those kids are. So basically trying to make sure that we're doing everything we can to support those kids that are going through very, very traumatic instances and making sure that they have a place to go and they're supported too as well. A lot of it is too as well as making sure they have the mental health support. That really kind of brings me to the next line about the gender-based violence too as well, because we have seen massive increases in gender-based violence since 2015. The numbers are staggering and scary, and we all should be really concerned about it. This council was very smart at pushing forth the sort of the support on gender-based violence and recognizing how big of a problem it is. The county has done it too as well, but this is once again to push the provincial government to recognize that and to push through the bills too as well to really do what we can. We know what's going on out there. We read it every day about people doing something and they're doing something in gender-based violence. They're arrested and they're out the next day and they're doing the exact same thing again. There's been case after case after case of that. So like that's happening in our, unfortunately, it's happening in our neighborhood. If you look at Integral House, that's going on in, sorry, this is very passionate for me because we look at Integral House in Carleton Place, they have had, this year, they've had a waiting list, which they've never had in the history of Integral House. So like, we cannot deny that those issues are going on in our community. And the more that we talk about it and that we're on top of it, and I think, you know, every guy at this table, you know, and obviously, but I think every guy at this table like would be very, very frustrated with what goes on out there. So I'll leave it at that because it's something that's very important. And the last one I think which is good is and we talked about this one, it's the speed management policy that we approved at the county. That's taken a while because we and I'm going to say from the Montague point of view is when we really had a lot of chats with Sean at the county to talk about how it's going to affect not just the county roads, but how it's going to affect the rural roads too as well, and the roads that are part of the municipalities. And there's a lot of the talk that we've come out of that too, as well as how we're going to share the data and share the information back and forth between our roads and the county roads, and to make sure that we have a really good understanding of where maybe our problems are, how we're going to address those problems, and really kind of talking about how we're going to this group that we put together too as well. As it's been really, really good to be part of it. As we talk about ways that we can work with the county and work with the lower tier. So it's not a separation thing. It's we're really working together to try to find ways to make the road safer and to find different mitigating circumstances. We know about our problem areas, like on Roselle South, especially around our senior center and everything else. That's a section that we want to make sure that we make it as safe as possible. And we're exploring ways to make that safer too as well. So I think that's coming from this too as well. So I think that's important to note. And if there's more talk or more chatter about safety of the roads, we want to hear about it, because then we can also bring it back to this committee that we meet 4 times a year to continue to kind of talk and go forward. So I think it's really important. So anyways, that's kind of my, as quick as I can, synopsis of really important things that has happened in the county in the last little while too as well. So thank you.
And the last is our Planning Act and Development Charges Act.
Christian, if you want to talk about that, well, I think it's just kind of good that they finally listened to us and they basically have said that we don't put things in the paper anymore. So I think that's
Right.
If you want to expand.
Yeah. So did you want me up there? Am I good here? Okay. So they've recognized that a lot of smaller municipalities do not have newspapers, so they finally changed the wording in the Planning Act to remove the requirement for publishing notice in the newspaper if there is not one available. That's one of the options of providing notice. The another one of the items that's noted in that correspondence is circulating planning applications to the local hospital. If the property that is the subject of the application is within 1 kilometer. So obviously certain types of planning and development does have a significant impact on the hospital and the usage of that hospital by the members of the municipality. So now they're one of the public agencies that circulated, like Hydro and Bell and BCA and all the other big list. So now hospitals are also circulated if it's. Yeah. That's it.
So before we close, we have questions from our audience. Tom?
When Emily was talking about the new complex you're gonna build, about the alarm system, Does that go up for tender every so often? Does you check prices? Competitive prices?
The chair through you, we haven't, our costs are extremely low, with the current provider. Because they also do our after hours phone, so we would have to change our whole thing. I'm not saying that we can't. Just have a lot of other eggs in the frying pan right now. But they have not done that here. Not as far as I'm,
Yeah, no, I was just wondering if, like everything else, you always check the best prices. I just wondered if that's done on a regular basis.
chair through you, as far as I know, that one's not.
Thank you.
Questions online?
Yeah, there was one question from a resident, as for the agenda tonight regarding the municipal building. I'm curious if FCM opportunities were considered. What the up cost would have been to make this a qualified project versus the grant amount and favorable interest rate. Thank you.
Chair through you. So, yeah, that's a great question. So we did look into that. So we would have to go to a net zero or almost net zero building to accommodate. And the grant maximum would have been up to $500,000. So based off, again, we were going based off the Class D estimates of not going, and they would only, I think they only loan up to $10 million for that FCM program. So based on the Class D and the Class B estimate, first of all, they wouldn't lend us enough. And the upservicing to the net zero would be substantially more. Like Beckwith Township did the net zero. And it's not just, I think what everybody keeps forgetting is it's not just the building price of the net zero, it's the operation and replacement of all that net zero equipment. That is substantially more after speaking with Beckwith and the CBO with Beckwith. At that time, because that came forward to council, we had this discussion. We had this in March, and it was decided at that time that we wouldn't go that route. But it was discussed, I'm sure, at the March meeting.
I think it's a great question, but it's one that we exhausted and went through because we were looking at opportunities for grant opportunities. It's like, this has been one of those things where I wish there was more grant opportunities for it. So it's yeah, it's a great question.
Any other questions, council? So moved by Councillor Johnson and seconded by Deputy Reed Carroll that bylaw 4082-2024, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council at its regular meeting held on Tuesday, August 6th, 2024, be read the first, second, and third time and passed, signed, and sealed the 6th day of August 2024. All in favor? And that's carried. Moved by Deputy Reed Carroll and seconded by Councillor Abbas. Council adjourned the regular meeting of August 6th, 2024 at 7:05 p.m. until September 3rd, 2024 at 6 p.m. or at the call of the chair. All in favor? That's carried.
Good to go?
Welcome back, everybody, to our committee of the whole meeting. Open the meeting with our land acknowledgement. So the council and staff, of the township of Montague acknowledge that this sacred land, which the township of Montague is now located, and this meeting is being held in the ancestral and unceded territory of the Anishinaabe Nation. So adoption agenda. So the amended one is the committee of the whole agenda dated August 6th, 2024, to be approved as amended this day to remove item 3P from the agenda. And that's carried. So I got no disclosures, no delegations, and the first report is going to be, I'm assuming Allison, about the chief building officials second quarter building report, or is it more information?
Yeah, sure. Give me for information. I think that we've had 17 new house starts this year, so that's pretty decent for us. And the development charges are already at over what we had budgeted. So I think that it's been a relatively good year so far in addition to building. But I think that you saw that with a number of getting completed over the last year, with bringing on junior planner and things like that. So yeah, we're pretty steady.
Yeah, this is like basically one of the second best first 2 quarters we've had in the last 25 years. So I think it's pretty good. We're seeing that growth and obviously some of that legwork that Kirsten has put out there to get all the applicants ready to go is kind of helping out. So yeah, it's great. So and I think that all charts that circle in the next the report's in there too as well. We're already at 89,000 or 89,000 in development charges for back. So it's definitely we're moving in the right direction as far as that goes. So any other questions from that from council? Just great things. Yeah, moving on. So moved by Councilor Godfrey and seconded by Councilor Johnson. The council accept the second quarter building report presented this date as information. All in favor? That's carried. Next is the water report. I think everything is still clean, so I think any points on that one. So if there's any questions from anybody at all for that. From staff.
Thank you, Chair. So I think just keeping in mind that we did bring on the casual water operator too. So you're going to start seeing some of that into July. So he has come on board and been acquainted with our system and our reporting. So things are moving well in that.
Hold on, that's great for sort of that progressive ideas to make sure that we have backups, which is really, really good because Miles does a great job, but it is a pretty demanding job for one person to really have to make sure that they do. So any questions from council? Seeing none, so moved by Councilor Johnson, seconded by Reed Jennings. The council accept the second quarter water report presented this day's information. All in favor? And that's carried. We have our second quarter fire report. Is there anything from staff?
Yes, thank you, Chair. So I think you're just going to note that our number of calls are up this year. It's been a busy first half of the year for them already. But again, keeping in to their regular attending lots of community events. They actually attend so many, I think most of the time they forget to even put them all on here. So they've been busy. They've been busy for the first half of the year.
I think.
And definitely the note that they were the winners again and they pulled the bumper.
Yes. Yes. 2 years in a row.
Yeah, say actually I heard that from some of the Smith Falls people and one of the people on the Smith Falls Park. She goes, it's not fair. You guys always got big, strong guys. Like, exactly it. We're the safest place to be. Like, when I have my house on fire, I know who's carrying me out. So it's good. No, it's fantastic. And then, like you said, like the community events they do, like they're at the fly-in breakfast. Like the kids love that with Sparky there and everything else. And winning that events. They're doing their dark leagues too as well. I mean, there's just so much that they do that's positive for our community, which is great. And they're also saving our lives up here. So it's fantastic. So any questions from council? No, perfect. So moved by Reed Jennings and seconded by Councilor Bass. The council accepts the second quarter fire report presented this day as information. All in favor? And that's carried. We have next up is our second quarter planning report. And I'm going to ask Kirsten, not Elsa, to come up and have a chat.
Okay, so stats are down. These are down, but I've been busy. And I did take an opportunity to reach out to a number of people that I've pre-consulted with just to see if there's anything else that I could do to help them along with their applications. And a few of them have just said that, their timing was just a bit off before, and I expect that we're gonna get a few more in because now they're ready to move forward, so that's good. And so the numbers are the numbers, so.
We
Yeah.
know that.
Again, Sherry, yeah, through you, like, I think, person played it down a bit, so she gets a lot of phone calls, so just because the actual applications have not been submitted, there's a lot of background work and a lot of meeting time, and just it's a process that not everybody understands, so she spends a lot of time going through that with people, and I think she's very good at taking the time and going through it, so just because the numbers aren't there, doesn't mean she's not busy in the background, because her phone is consistently ringing.
I have received calls to tell us that they're very pleased with the service they're getting out of Manning, and that they appreciate the time you take with them.
It's a night and day, like, I mean, we obviously, like, when we talk about like, complaints or things like that, roads and planning were the two biggest ones that we've had in previous times. Planning has dropped off. So like it's even roads have dropped off too as well, like a lot of those ones, like roads are getting a lot better, but the planning has been, it's been huge. So yes, we recognize there's not a doubt, I know in my mind, I think the council's mind that what you're doing and keeping things smooth, and getting things ready. The building reports also show sort of your, what you started. So yeah, just keep going and we'll make sure you stay busy. It's all good.
I do get some very interesting inquiries, so even our consultant has commented, he just loves getting my emails because there's things that he's never seen before, so.
It's nice when we have the
Enjoying.
the outside consultants
Yep.
talk about our, that work with different townships. I brought this up before with Forbes, and he said that too as well. All the townships he works with, he goes like, he likes coming here because of just the professionalism, the knowledge, how nice we are. But I think that's, that speaks volumes to how well we're running things, because when those outside agencies come in and recognize that, I think that's very, very important. That's great. So thank you, Kristen. So, any other questions from council? None. So moved by Councillor Bass, second by Councillor Crabtree. The council accepts the second quarter planning report presented this day as information. All in favor? That's great. My favorite report's the second one.
So while planning applications may be down, septic applications are doing very well, in a very busy quarter, as you can see, from the numbers on report. Second quarter, 21 files versus 9 in the comparable 2023 quarter, and revenue almost doubled from the quarter last year as well. So it's a busy business.
This is being built. There's.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of installations, few replacement systems. So. Yeah,
That's going smoothly too as well. Seems like a great process there.
it is. Yeah. So still actually cleaning up a couple files from when the health unit was running the program, ones that weren't revoked because they were at the 99% mark, and we didn't want them to have to start completely over. But no, we're getting the hang of it, and it's working well.
Good.
Yeah.
Keep on flushing. All right. So Councillor Crabtree, moved by Councillor Crabtree, and seconded by Councillor Johnson, that council accepts the second quarter septic report presented as stated as information. All in favor? That's good. Ian, I think you're up, right? We're going to talk about the public works quarterly.
No public works, been my busiest quarter so far. Maintenance operations and maintenance contracts have wrapped up pretty much. Gravel went down as planned with 1,000-ton surplus going to Pinery Road in some problem areas. The guys have been out doing a lot of brushing and trimming and tree removals, and we've had a few trees removed by tree service. Dust suppression contract wrapped up in June. Lots of maintenance issues with all the different issues we've been having with some of the older equipment, like the water tanker and the lawnmower, which we'll talk about later. Drainage, there's been a lot of beaver activity this year with all the rain we've had, and the guys have removed a lot of beaver dams. There's picture one, which I think looked exactly like that after 2 days after they removed it. Had students out, lots of on maintenance and general activities. Noxious weed spraying, the contract which is alongside with Leonard County wrapped up in June. With Pioneer Road finishing in July, so that's all been done now, and it seems to have gone well with the roadside look a lot more free of parsnip than they did before they sprayed. Capital projects are pretty well wrapped up. Microsurfacing is completed on McPherson Road. We have our new tandem plow, which is currently at the shop getting some final additions, but it has been delivered. King Street Matson Drive contract completed by Campbell's. Was pictured in the report, which I think it turned out really well. And we had technically started on the 22 acres with the parking suite. Waste, same rough second quarter waste as last year, a little bit more than the first quarter, which I think is to be expected. I think it's pretty typical in the springtime getting more tonnage. So we're sort of on the same amount of tonnage as last year, a little bit less. Recycling, recycling was taken over by Terra in the last year. We have been getting some complaints from residents about Terra's recycling pickup, which there's nothing we can really do about it. So they've been told, and we've had issues with not getting pickups and sometimes getting complaints about driving. And then other general operations, just typical day-to-day public works things.
Any questions from council at all? Or-
With dust suppression.
Yeah.
Do you do any of that, towards the fall, like, sometime in August?
Currently, it's just one application a year. I think that's something we've talked about potentially if there's any problem areas. I know some municipalities that I've spoken to do use, for some areas get, I think the dust suppressant, if it's on hills, it gets washed off more quickly. So they do some different things in certain areas. So that's something that I'm gonna be looking into.
Okay, yeah, because with the weather, it's either pouring rain or it's hot, 1,000,000 degrees. I was just wondering if that affects what you do and.
Yeah, it's not something I haven't experienced with, to be honest. So I know that's what we've done in the past, as far as I know, is just one application a year. But I talked to some other municipalities, they do sometimes have applications. So it's something I'm looking into.
Okay, thanks, appreciate that.
Just to speak on that, so as council will recall too, we more than doubled up our reserve for calcium with the surplus that we had from 2023, and also with the roads needs study and the levels of service with the asset management plan for the 2025 legislative requirements. That'll all be coming forward in what is council and what is the public looking for in those levels of service. Because right now we do all of our roads where other municipalities do more of like a spot application where there's houses. So I think there's a number of things, as Ian said, that we can look into and discuss during that level of service discussion and what we're really looking for. It might even be that a road that has a certain amount of AADT or like annual or average daily traffic, then maybe it is looked at a little different, right? So our plan is hopefully that during that level of service discussion, we've gone ahead and prepped ourselves by adding those reserves, but that we can have those discussions more and have the public input as well.
Excellent. You said anything, I think the last one was a good lead into this one that's gonna help us maybe take the next steps. That's a great good question too.
Which our public meeting for the roads need has already been set for September 25th. So it's in your messenger and your tax bill.
So we encourage anybody to come in.
That's right.
And like ask questions, because I think a big part of it too as well is like we want feedback, but we also want the public to understand how much thought that is put into that study and everything. And like it's not like just really throwing gravel and all that kind of stuff. There's a process people working on it. Look forward to seeing how we can even take it to the next level, so.
That might be a good idea, you know, doing certain spots. Yeah. And instead of just once a year, maybe go back twice a year to those certain spots. I mean, if you go a mile, there's no.
Yeah, no,
There's no
that
houses, what's a little dust gonna bother there? So it's a good thought.
That's good points there, yeah.
If we get no comments, it means everything's perfect.
Because.
So- You know,
That
my point being, if people don't come out to these, sort of events or send out emails and put the word out there that, you know, these are their issues, these are their concerns, we have nothing to base anything on. So,
Chair, just keeping in mind, we do have some, vote, like we've had some of those things brought forward in relation to the calcium, that we have on file for the road needs and things like that. It came up actually at our last, the 2024 budget. So we do have those on file, but yes, I understand what you're saying. It's just
more,
we're encouraging
Yeah.
people that if you want to come out and have those discussions. It's an open house, not a meeting.
Talk about roads, we don't talk about roads. So
Yeah.
So my one question is, I haven't seen like, it's the lighting section.
Yeah, but they should be starting soon. Let's say, just contact them today about. We were waiting until they finished,
The roads, obviously.
yeah, the micro and the Pearson, but now it's been done. So I reached out to them, again today, so they should be starting shortly.
Like, you just let us know by like the next meeting.
Yeah. Well, yeah,
If it hasn't started by next meeting, like to say like it's.
Yeah.
So we have a good night.
I'll send an update when they, get started.
That's
That's good, thank you.
Any other questions from council at all? Seeing none, thanks, Ian.
Thanks.
So moved by Council Johnson and seconded by Lee Jennings, that council accept the second quarter public works report presented to state this information. All in favor? That's carried. We have the staff overtime report, I'm sure also will speak on it, but I mean, obviously it's well managed, so.
Thank you, Chair. So at this time, as you can see in the tables, there's no concern in relation to the overtime. We're well within the budget. We're actually under budget in a lot of the hours. So at this point in time, there's no financial concern to report.
Any questions at all? Seeing none. Great. So moved by Lee Jennings and seconded by Councilor Hess. The council accepts the second quarter staff overtime report presented to state this information. All in favor? Carried. Do that part. So, capital grants and grant projects.
Thank you, Chair. So we're sitting in a really good position as far as where we're with a lot of our capital projects, because again, we had budget passed early, tenders back early, and we're completed. So the tandem plow is here, getting some additions. The coverall building, the concrete was to get sealed. We still have so much winter product left because we had a really mild winter. We're not gonna be able to seal it this year, so we're gonna include it in 2025, because we're not gonna move all of that to do that. I mean, it's a good thing that we have all that product left, but it's delaying that. So we do have the storage building in here at the 20,000, which I said I'll bring a report to council on. McGuire Road, we're still working on that actually. So internally, there was to be some work done, but with the moving forward with the building, and Public Works will be busy moving stuff out and preparing. We're going to get some pricing to get the ditching and the entrances put in. So Public Works will be working on that. Pinery Row alignment, we are still working on that agreement. For that. McPherson is completed, it's just not billed. We didn't pay the invoice as of the date. Road needs study is underway. OSIM, we've received pricing and will be happening as well. Rito Ave Matheson are completed. King Street completed. The fire tanker pumper we've ordered that the year before. Helmets and gloves have all been purchased. The master plan has started. Airport capital, we don't have anything for that right now. For the police, that was the first purchase of the speeding flashing signs. So those are up and in use. The fencing at Rosedale has been completed. And the Recreation 22 acres has started now in July, but that's June. We didn't have any costs there. So for the grants, we did receive the Enbridge, which is completed, the senior community grant. We're starting that actually with an NEC trip at the end of August. Lanark County, the environmental grant. So we purchased all of the reusable water bottles that will be doing a gift, like we'll be bringing to the school in September whenever they start back. Emergency Management Ontario, our generators here. We still have some outstanding grant applications. So we applied to get an age-friendly community plan developed. So once you have that, then you are more likely to get other senior community grants. Canada Post grant we have out still for some youth and kids activities over a 2-year period. FCC AgriSpirit, we applied for the SCBA cleaning machine for fire. And there's 3 more grants right now that we apply to in the next month for that. So yeah, right now we're sitting in a really good financial position as far as capital goes. As it's been indicated several times this evening, we were under budget.
Yeah.
I just have a question, maybe Allison can't answer. I know you're gonna check in the prices for this canvas building. You go out. You know of any idea if we decide? Is it like a month, 2 months, 6 weeks?
So Chair, through you, so I did ask that. And they said that from the time of order to the time of delivery install with no issues as far as like in the building department, it comes as an engineered stamp, but they said anywhere from 8 to 10 weeks. So they said it would be likely that we would have it. Yeah,
Good.
if we move. So keep in mind that if I get pricing, I may ask for a special meeting to discuss that so that we're moving. Yeah, because I'm anticipating getting the pricing this week, but I'll keep council.
Thank you.
Any questions? A couple notes that I had as well. Just make sure everybody's aware, like when we looked at the Matheson and King, it actually came less than what the equipment was. And I think you're gonna speak about, we can speak about that, about how they changed a little bit of it, made it, yeah. So yeah, you might.
So, sure. So the original tender was for a 66-foot road. And on King, if we did 66 feet, we would have been in people's front step, to be honest. So we still got it widened and it's going to be substantial for the plowing. And we did even a bigger turnaround at the end of it to try and help Public Works out. So that's why it's slightly under is some of that savings.
So we had like basically we got good pricing, and then $11,000 less than what the good pricing that we had to begin with.
And that was even adding in like the extra term.
Yeah. As well. So
Yeah.
Once again, I think that's the vision on our staff to small. Making sure that that wasn't done that we weren't paying for. So I think that's important too as well, because sometimes it won't get done, but we still pay with the so I think that's important. So $11,000 we got that. This definitely will help us towards some of the things that we purchased. So any other questions? Seeing none, so moved by Councillor Bass, second by Councillor Crabtree, the council accepts the second grants project report presented at this date as information. All in favor? Big financial stuff, so the budgetary control, Allison, you have a
We would like to go line by line. No. Okay, so, yes, thank you, Chair. So, again, we're sitting in a good financial position as of the end of June. There are a couple of items that I did note just for clarification on some items, especially under administration. The 171,000 reserve allocation includes the 146,000, which was a $95,000 increase over last year that we started for the reserve allocation for the Fire and Public Works complex. It was just underneath administration because it's going into administration reserve, although it's for that complex. Airport, Townsend Falls bills us at the end of the year for our portion, council. So, on their light item, there was township clothing and hats purchase, and we still have a number of things here for community giveaways and things like that. Council deems fit. And, the donation line was the sponsorship of the Warden Golf Tournament, which is going towards the youth centers in County Share. Drainage, so the Ford Municipal Drain was the big project from this year. So we billed and D&E has paid their portion, and a number of ratepayers have, some have not as of yet. That's that line. Net nothing really too impactful, to be honest, up to the end of June, in relation, but if there's questions from council, I'm happy to.
Any questions at all from council? They paid us. Do they wait until they get all that from repairs, or they just they give us their portion of it and they had to collect it on their own?
Yeah, so chair through you, sorry. So we paid the full bill. We took the lead on the project. So we paid the full bill and then we billed D&E their portion based on the schedules and allocations, and then they billed. We don't.
But they don't.
No, they paid us.
They paid us.
Yeah.
It's not like we have to pay the
No.
county. People decide.
Yeah.
They pay their taxes and everything else too as well.
Yeah,
So pay the county portion and the school board portion.
Yeah. so they paid us and then they collect,
Yeah.
just basically.
A couple notes on it too as well, like we talked about development charges, said that circle too as well, like, I mean, like we have budget 89,000, we're already at 80,000 development charges, which is a big part of our planning too as well, as we, you know, it kind of helps make it, the costing, even though we use that for other purposes. And there's one about the backhoe, there's some big repair jobs on the backhoe. We know, was there a breakdown, or was it just a big service?
It's for.
It had the 1,000-hour service done on it.
Okay,
So it was like a $4,000 bill. I'm not on the page you're on. But it had the 1,000-hour service on the backhoe. So that is substantially more. It was
so,
Yeah,
so we're just over the.
4,000 of that
budget.
would have been the 1,000-hour service. So that's what it was for, and that's not necessarily an annual thing that we were budgeted for, but
We did blow a few hydraulic lines, like, the week I started, I think back to back.
yeah. The bulk of that though is the 1,000 for the
Okay.
for the back.
A couple notes on like look at was talk about all we talked about the rentals, and we're already done with what, you know, what makes sense. It was great to see the use of that building. And you know, like some of the revenue that's coming from that, from the different events and everything else as well. One thing I remember talking about this, and as I was going through it, is the telephone effects. We had talked about when we put the internet and everything else, that we were gonna eliminate the telephone and go to like a VoIP system or something that'd be a lot significantly cheaper. That's something that, you know, that's a lot of the plate we're dealing with things, but is that something that we would still look at doing, or is it?
So potentially we could, but right now it wasn't really a priority on our list with all the other, it's a pretty small line item. And because we have to have a phone there because it's an emergency
Yeah.
center and not everybody, cells are working and not everybody has a cell.
We do that, we install the internet. You have that too as well, because you can just do. Internet, send a phone too as well, that is your phone system too as well.
I wasn't aware of that for the Wi-Fi because our Wi-Fi is not necessarily that great. Yeah. So
So it's still worthwhile. As well. Those are my questions. I think once again, our budget is on track and well managed, so I think it's fantastic. So any other questions for council? Seeing none. So moved by Councillor Crabtree and seconded by Councillor Johnson, that the council accepts the budgetary control report to June 30th, 2024, presenting the status information. All in favor? That's good. The next one is the sale of the non-viable land. And Kirsten.
Okay, good evening. So Mr. Pepper, is the owner of 68 First Street, and he contacted the township last fall to discuss purchasing the, small triangular parcel of land adjacent to his, that's owned by the township. A report was brought to council, reflecting his request. And it was recommended at that time that council defer making their decision on whether or not they wanted to convey those lands to Mr. Pepper until we had an updated and appropriate bylaw with respect to the sale of township-owned lands. So the previous bylaw was from 2007 and it was in dire need of updating. And that was completed, and that bylaw was passed in March of this year. As required pursuant to the new policy, Mr. Pepper has submitted an application to purchase this lot, and staff is now looking for direction from council on how they wish to proceed. So the first question is basically, does council want to declare this lot surplus? because it's not able to be developed on its own. And just for a little bit of background for those who might not have been here for that conversation, this small triangular piece of land is approximately 0.14 acres in size and is adjacent to a railway right of way. And pursuant to the development requirements of railways, and also as set out in our zoning bylaw, there is no allowance for new residential sensitive land use development within 30 meters of a railway right of way. That triangle is 100% fully within that 30-meter separation distance, as is probably 80% of Mr. Pepper's property. But his house, which unfortunately did have a fire, is going to be able to be rebuilt on the same footprint, but he wouldn't be able to expand that footprint because it would be within that 30-meter setback. So question number one, does council want to declare the lot surplus because it can't be developed on its own? And if council does wish to dispose of this property, there needs to be discussion on the sale price. So in the report, it's been stated that the two options are a letter of opinion from a realtor, or the current impact assessment, which is, I believe it's $29,000 is what impact has this property assessed as. And council always has the ability to pick basically any price that they want, but those are the two options, and I'm looking for some direction from council how they wish to proceed.
Thanks, Kirsten. Council will say, is there something to say that maybe to look at selling that off to Mr. Pepper? I mean, originally there was a point where that piece of land was there, it was maybe being a little park or, you know, or something like that. It was never going to be developable for the house onto it. Look at that option as in my opinion, as far as a park, especially when you go right across the road, there's a massive field with a baseball diamond and everything else. It's like it's already there. And like Kristen stated too as well, in my thoughts anyways, it's not something that can be built on. So it's not really advantageous for us maybe to continue to hold on to that liability, I think too as well. So anyways, those are my thoughts, but does anybody else?
I kind of agree.
Yeah.
There's no sense of keeping it if it's no good for anything.
So the next question then is also what route do we want to go to? Because once again, like, I mean, we have assessed that you can't build anything on it. So I don't know if that assessment is even appropriate for what it is, but I mean, interesting to go to a realtor, but take more feedback.
I just wanted to clarify that there's no ability to place any sensitive land uses, so living space for a dwelling, but there is an opportunity that that Mr. Pepper could build a workshop or put a swimming pool or a gazebo or something that he can use it, but he can't put any like residential occupancy on that.
Mr. Pepper can, but does anybody else have a use for
So
like
right.
if it was sold to anyone else, would they be able to utilize or use this property for?
So the permitted use, so a shed or a gazebo or a workshop, those are considered to be accessory uses. You can't have an accessory use if you don't have a primary use. So the primary use would be a dwelling. So unless it was rezoned to something else.
So close enough, not really.
No. Ran around and no. No, and it is a great question.
It's just because they're putting a $29,000. It's $29,000 to no one because there's no real value to that. We're impacting with this $29,000 figure. I don't understand, and not that I don't want to say it's there's of course value to it, but there's value to adjacent landowners, and that's the big point.
Yes.
So I think with impact though, they don't take into consideration our zoning or our official plans, right? So that's a buildable lot on municipal surfaces, if the railway wasn't there. So that's probably where they're coming up with the 29,000, is that, and we're the owners, there's no taxes paid. If somebody owned that, they would file a request for reconsideration and say, I can't do anything with this, and the value would be substantially lower. It's just because we don't pay taxes on it because it's the municipals.
We're not going-
That never happened. The request for reconsiderations never happened. But if you owned it, you would be saying, I can't do anything with this, it's not worth $29,000. And you would file a request for reconsideration and that value would drop drastically whenever you say, I can't build there because there's a railway.
So realistically, if we went to MPAC and said, would they give us an actual value of what that property's worth?
Sure, we can file a request for reconsideration as a municipality as well.
I'm just saying, I'm just saying to
To come up with a
to
value.
come up with an actual value, so we're not going to a person saying, we want $29,000 for this piece of property that you can't use for anything, except for maybe some more loan that you're gonna have.
And that's why I think maybe it's application for us to go to like realtor and say, here's what the land is, what's it worth? And, you know, and it's the only thing it's worth the most to is probably Mr. Pepper.
Mhm.
Oh, but we can't put it, it's just what's it worth to him, we have to put it up, what's it worth in the market, so I think maybe the best way is to go to a realtor and say. What is this piece of land that nobody can build on actually worth and give us an idea of what it costs? We don't have to take that as the sell number because. Yeah, like, but it may not hurt to get maybe that opinion and that probably won't really cost us. Well, it's gonna be Mr. Pepper that would have to. Like,
So,
cost of those.
Right, and at this point in time, I mean, we don't have a deposit that we can utilize to offset any expenses that we incur. So I can't guesstimate what a cost of a letter of opinion would be, but I would imagine it would be a few $100s.
Should be very much.
So I think. We're all game for going forward with this, so we're going back to sort of the Peppers and saying, okay, yeah, like. This sounds good to us, let's start moving forward and do we leave that up to you then at that point to say like maybe we'll get the realtor and offset the costs and. Deposit and all that kind of stuff is first.
Well, I would need direction from council if you wish for me to contact a couple of realtors to get quotes on what it would cost for a letter of opinion. And then to obtain that.
Do we do that on our cost, or are we doing it on the person that's interested in, or should we do it on our cost? So, yeah, go ahead. I'll come to you.
So Chair, through you, so at this time, as Kirsten said, we have no securities, and until they know the value of the land, they're probably not gonna provide securities for the purchase of it, so I think we would be doing that.
Okay. Okay. So like, sounds good, Jim.
What about just going to Mr. Pepper? Saying what they valued at the land at, which is ridiculous, and saying, what do you offer? And then he comes in with this ridiculous thing, then we could say, you know, I mean, he might come back, I don't say, we'll just say 10, 15,000. We might be better just to do that then, if that was something council wanted, instead of having to pay somebody else.
Is there any procedural issue with that as far as,
I mean, they're just making an offer.
Oh, I agree. Yeah.
So Chair, through you, I don't believe that in the policy
No.
for negotiation.
Yeah.
Oh,
So I think that what council or what person has put in front of you is either. So we do have a couple of options. We can contact MPAC and do an RFR for our own property and see what the value comes back at.
Is that cost anything?
No.
Plus-
So, well, we pay, you know what I mean, but yes, so no, that has no cost, but we can try that route. It will take them a little bit to get back to us, but I don't think there's a huge panic for Mr. Pepper. So we could do that to see what MPAC comes back at, because they might come back and say, you know what, okay, it's not right, so, and I mean, then it's, I would say more fair and equitable in the sense that everybody's property is assessed by the same place, as opposed to different realtors with different opinions and
Yes.
different looks at it. So I think that that could be an option for us, that we do file an RFR for our own property and see what comes back.
Yeah, it's true.
Is there any other neighboring bodies to this property?
No.
Could we, and just some more ideas, you guys can shoot me if you feel like it. Could we not come up with just an arbitrary number? And I'm saying on the lower end, because we know that there is no value just to get it off of our roster, since it can't go to anybody else really, other than this one individual.
There's a sort of procedural step.
So the only procedural step would be that. Because I'm pretty sure they're gonna come back and say, no, well, a lot since you're going to. And I'm just trying to maybe save us steps if it's not required, considering it's currently on our obligations. There's nobody else really it's of value to, other than this one individual.
Just to that point, we always talk about being very transparent. And if we sort of negotiate with someone, I think that could be called into question. It's, why are you doing it this way, as opposed to, let's say, a process? And I know there's additional steps, which I guess we just have to do. But my only concern would be that if we start to negotiate with someone, because it might be worth $1,000 as far as I'm concerned, but if we don't have a backing of someone saying this is what it's worth, I don't know, I would just hate for someone to come back and say, well, you did this for Mr. Pepper, why aren't you doing it? Why is it on that?
That's the scary part. You want to get the residents somewhere else, even though they could not be honest.
Yeah.
Or just for someone to say, well, you did it for this.
Yeah, and the only thing is, I think when Pat's gonna come back, it's gonna be lesser than that. Yeah.
That's, yeah, at least we did it like.
Yeah.
The best way that they can also get this transparency also. So I think that we're not gonna shoot you.
No.
But I think. Jim, but I think that's the purpose of what we discussed this morning, is to make sure that we're spitballing any idea that can be out there. Make sure that we're coming to some solutions. So I think that's good.
Yeah, I don't think we really have an option, other than to at least examine either impact assessment or a letter of opinion, then bring the number back and then make the decision based on that.
Okay, so we're gonna do that, which is, like you just said, is not one of our.
No, it isn't.
So, staff, there's like an impact assessed value.
It's not gonna be 29,000, but I think that
it's kind of, see. Use that, the assessed value, to use the assessed value. We want to kind of like go back, find out what the true impact value is, and then. So it's a manipulation of C.
Yeah.
Any other questions for a person that's right at this?
That was actually not even an option that I had thought of.
no, we didn't.
Joys of the spitballing of the ideas, we sit right here and come to it and come to. I think that's. It's great, it makes it work, so. Seeing no other questions, so we'll move by Councillor Johnson, second by Reed Jennings. The council next step to proceed with option C as amended to direct staff to file a request for reconsideration and bring the updated assessed value back to council for approval in relation to the proposed conveyance of lot 122 on plan 2707 to Ivan East Cover. All in favor? And that's carried. Person's not going anywhere. We've discussed for a long time, and I'm kind of getting to it. It's the YU Business Park. So understanding what we have. So take it away.
Okay. So the township's official plan that was approved in 2023 contained a statement that council wanted to undertake efforts to establish the Montague Business Park as being investment ready. Essentially, that would mean that some potential developer would come in and they would have some sort of an assurance that they could do basically what they were hoping to do on that parcel of land. So staff have conducted a review of these lands, specifically with respect to their natural heritage features. That includes things like wetlands and woodlands, natural corridors, things such as that. And also impactful development constraints, and that takes into consideration proximity to a railway proximity to, a highway. And the report that you have before you is I think, pretty fulsome and contains a lot of detail, but I'll just highlight the main parts here. So to the west of the railway right of way is a provincially significant wetland, and to the east of the right of way, there are areas of non-provincially significant wetland. So development isn't allowed to take place within wetland designations. Doesn't matter if it's provincially significant or non-provincially significant. And any development within 120 meters of a wetland requires an environmental impact study to support development and to possibly 30 meters. So essentially, you can't build in a wetland or within 30 meters of a wetland. That's it for sure. But that setback can only be reduced if the EIS is supportive of that. Now, in saying that you can't build within the 30-meter regulation area, there are some very minor exceptions, but none of those would be appropriate in an industrial park. So the recent changes with RVCA, you know, decks, fences, you know, like 15-meter square accessory structures, little things like that, but those are not what I would consider industrial park type structures. So when we look at the wetlands that are identified in the report, that's based on RVCA's mapping as well as our official plan mapping. As everyone knows, RVCA was conducting a review of their wetland mapping. I know that's kind of been put on hold for a period of time. So I'm not sure what that mapping looks like because it's no longer available to the public to review. But based on the current mapping, if you factor in the 30-meter setback, there's no buildable area left on the lots owned by the township. So the Montague Business Park is comprised of 6 properties. We own the 3 in the middle. We don't own the 2 near the turnaround, nor do we own the 1 that's on the opposite end of the 3 that we do own, if I worded it correctly. So unless we get an environmental impact study that would demonstrate to RVCA's satisfaction that those non-provincially, because we're not going to change provincially significant, but the non-provincially significant wetlands, that they aren't wetlands at all, there's really no buildable area on these properties. There's more detail in the report with respect to other studies and other features that this property is subject to. For example, there are some natural corridors and linkages along the frontage of the lots. So they would have to be addressed in an EIS. And if we were going to get an EIS to determine the boundaries of the non-PSW, that's non-provincially significant wetland, we would incorporate the natural corridors and linkages into that EIS. It would be one report, not 2 separate reports. This property is also located within an intake protection zone and is subject to source water protection policies. And that would also require approval from RVCA's source water protection team if we were to do anything on that property to make sure that what was being proposed would fall under their umbrella, what is appropriate. There's also a requirement in our official plan that we need to consider archaeological resources when we're dealing with planning applications and development. Due to the provincially significant wetland and archaeological assessment, stage 1 would most likely be required, and that's a tabletop exercise that the company would undertake just to determine if there would potentially be any archaeological artifacts. It's unlikely because of the railway and the highway and all that development on either side that you're probably not going to, but we would still have to go at least as far as stage 1. Staff did reach out to MTO and the railway to have a conversation about what sort of studies would be required no matter what was being proposed. And they include traffic impact assessment, stormwater management, and drainage plan. Those would be 2. There was also a conversation about a noise impact assessment, but I think that would be more relevant for residential. I don't think there's anything expected for in any industrial or commercial development. So basically at this time looking at the properties and the wetland features. And again, unless an EIS is obtained that says those aren't wetlands and RBCA agrees that those aren't wetlands, really don't think there's a lot of opportunity for developing this area as a business park. But I've had a conversation with another staff member and the possibility of maybe using that area as a gravel parking lot for those who are utilizing the OVRT and the nearby snowmobile trail. Also perhaps carpooling area, that might be something that could be considered. It's not hardscaping, so there's ability for drainage, but again, RBCA would have to be brought into that conversation, see if they would be supportive of that. And if they were, we would still have to do some studies. I don't think the archaeological assessment would be required because we wouldn't be doing excavating. That's more for when you're digging, if you're just adding gravel to the top. I don't pretend to understand how driveways and gravel and all that stuff work, but if there's not significant digging, then I wouldn't imagine the archaeological assessment would be required, but the other things would still have to be addressed. So I will open it up for questions, comments.
I think Kirsten, that's a lot for that. On that start, it's one of those things that, you know, I remember looking at it 6 years ago saying like, okay, this is something that actually is going to be, that actually is going to develop into a business area or business park, or is it stuck in kind of in a mud hole, so to speak? So I appreciate that we've now kind of got a better understanding of what that looks like. So if you have some questions, I'll open the guests first for sure. For questions, what we want to do.
It's not much good for anything then. So you're saying unless somebody gets into some of these studies, that's gonna cost a lot of money. Other than for the snowmobile, which would be good if you had a spot there.
And Chair through you, because that if RBCA was supportive of, looking into the potential for a gravel parking area, there could be some potential for funding or grants that staff could look at when we're dealing with the environmental impact as far as, carpooling that's good for the environment, or perhaps from a recreational perspective, because it's providing parking options for people for recreational activities. So some of that funding could perhaps offset some of those studies, and that's something that we can look into to see if there's anything available.
One other quick question. What, so the other lots that are sold to other people, what can they build on them? Or is it, can they build anything? Because we're in the middle.
Here, so the two at the end,
Yeah.
we'll be bringing something back in relation to that, but what we discussed.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
You're done.
I know it's not helpful. We will bring something back in relation to
More
those
questions?
two. Yeah.
Would it be helpful if I could get that map that isn't online anymore for you? Or it doesn't matter, even the old maps just show it it's wetland?
Well, so the current mapping that's not been revised shows substantial wetland on it, so unless the new mapping shows none,
It does not.
or,
So it's not really helpful. Get that map for you, just to put one nail in the coffin of what.
Just, I know that the county had talked about parking for the OVRT, and the fact that I don't know if that's actually moved forward anywhere. Whether that's an option for us to be able to approach the county to discuss that. Fine, bring it.
Bring it up. It's good. So I guess, okay, so.
No, based on with the field that's right behind it, the likelihood that there's no flooding there is, nil. The field directly behind it, is a swimming pool in the spring. So the likelihood that you're gonna have and flooding issues on that is 100%. So it's just a matter of now figuring out what can we use, is there something that we can do with it that's going to benefit the township benefit, the people benefit, carpooling benefit. If you can find something to utilize it without upsetting, CA and everything else, I think that's the way to, I think you've done a great job.
Do we know what it would cost, the estimated cost of the EIS city might cost?
So we did just do one for the 22 acres. Now, keep in mind that doesn't maybe have the amount of natural features of wetland that this one has. But how much was that one?
Yeah, so the 22-acre one, which did not have near the mapping that this has, it was $3,500 for that. At the 22 acres.
So it could be like a $5,000 sort of look into. So it's like when we're talking about that study too, as well as it's not something that's, we're not talking about a $50,000 study, we're talking about maybe something that could be $5,000. That might, give us an idea just to make sure we have all of the appropriate information. So for that, I just want to throw that in there too, as well, to make sure we have an understanding of that. The second part too, as well, is the parking for OBRT. The biggest question I have for my next point would be, how do we get a pathway from where we would do that to the OBRT?
There is no direct connection, unfortunately.
So
The only the only thing that really connects is the snowmobile trail road. Basically right through there, and cuts across. So it would be parking for there, because I know people are parking along the road, they're parking kind of in bad spots. But as far as the OBRT goes, our property does not connect.
and would there be an opportunity to run sort of a pathway? Is there space there to run a pathway to make it connect to the OBRT? Do you think there'd be an opportunity for that too, as well, or is that something that we can kind of go? And I'll bring this up because I also sit on the Trails Committee at the committee too as well. This has been a discussion point. And this is something that's I can't openly speak and say that they're going to pay for it, but I'm very confident that any parking lot that we would build there for the OBRT to make a trailhead, the county would pay for it, basically. And we would have, because I'm always exactly what also just said, like it's an issue as it is right now. That is the head of the OBRT, and there is no trailhead. There's trailheads all through the OBRT, but there's not one in Montague at the actual. We talked about doing that at Tetlock. It was not a good spot. It wasn't a good amount of land. It was awkward. But I know this has been loosely sort of thrown out in part of the trails discussions too as well, about putting it there and then trying to link it to the OBRT too as well. And if we can do that, that could be advantageous for us, and we can turn it into something with that too as well. So if that sort of gets a stretch, I think we can also go to the county and into the trail side and look and see if there's a way that we can do something along those lines, and then have it, how we're going to connect it. And there's money in the reserves of the trails for these type of projects, and it's recognized by the group up there that there should be a trailhead at Montague. So that's sort of like where we're going with that. But I guess the biggest thing is making sure that if we're, because we like you're talking about maybe putting it on obviously one of those spots. Is there a way that we can maybe connect it besides the snowmobile trail? It could be also for like all users for in case to be able to park and then start the walkers. In the big case that we have snowmobiles.
Yeah, I believe there's 2 lots that are kind of between our property and Sturgis Road, which is, I believe, where the OBRT starts. So we can definitely look into options there.
The other thing is though that no matter where they've been going from, a lot of them have been parking at Civitan and getting tickets. The ATVs and the snowmobiles are allowed to drive on the shoulder of a road to get to another body of road. So it is a short stint from there to Sturgis. So even at that, I still think it would be a viable option, even if we could not find a direct route. Like, I don't disagree with you, the ATV group would gladly help pay, because they've been putting tons of gravel on the road as part of their stint, so. But I'm saying this is a viable option, no matter what, whether that's an option or not.
I think it's a great opportunity to explore that, if that's sort of
Mhm.
where we want to go. I don't want to throw the EAS entirely, because it could be something that could be the price of the land. But I think I know for me, I'm aiming for going down first to say, hey, like, this is where we have an opportunity, maybe we can, it's not, because it's not right beside the trailhead, but it could be a good opportunity for something along those lines. The only thing with the sort of, we have to make sure that we manage and understand, will the ATVs dig up Sturgis Road? Or that we have to make sure that we're.
They're already using Sturgis.
So that's, yeah, so it's a valid point. It's already, the abuse is already
The
there.
abuse is there, whether it's there or not. So,
Sorry.
Did you have something?
the other thing, the EIS, as much as I think it's just gonna be throwing money out. The reason I say that is we are in an area that's slowly but surely being developed. There is nowhere for parking lots or anything else. This would be a really great viable option for people who are looking for that. And in the 10 years I've lived here, no one's talked about this as a business development at all. So that $7,000, even if we could put it towards starting the due process to get this going, I think it would be utilized to an extreme amount in comparison to what it's been used in the last 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. I don't, the EIS, it could be just a $7,000 nail in the coffin. Okay, you can't use it for nothing, then it's still, we're at.
Yeah, that's a great point too as well. Yeah, and there's other, that's. Commercial building. The prop and everything else that could be there, so.
Yeah, so just the question, so would you then go to the county first to feel around to see if they're up for something like that? And then do the environmental study, or would you do it?
We don't need to do the environmental study if we're doing a parking lot, or we'd have to go that route.
I would have to get direction from RBCA, because the EIS wouldn't just be dealing with the wetland, but it would also be dealing with the natural corridors and linkages, so those are considered significant wildlife habitats. So we need to kind of factor in all of those
So we may
things.
have to do this regardless if you want.
The EIS might be required regardless, but perhaps it could be scoped, because we wouldn't be doing as much disturbance as you would if you were paving and building structures and whatnot.
But we would get guidance through RBCA on what
Right.
they are making us, or what we're required to do.
I wouldn't recommend getting the EIS prior to getting sort of like an in principle agreement with RBCA that, you know,
Okay.
it's something that they would potentially be supportive of if the EIS also was supportive.
And then we can go to the county. And
Yeah.
we also have when we have the trails committee meeting, that's where I'm at, that's where I would obviously speak up saying like, this is what we've come up with. So it was all, I strongly like that we can get behind that. Like I said, there is a flavor for us to do that, and there is funds available for us to do that too as well. So I think we can probably get that.
Yeah, and that's where, like, I think it's a great idea. It's probably the only use we're ever gonna get out of that land. But in my limited dealings with RVCA, you have to talk to them first, or you'll just get stopped.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to make sure we were gonna, what options are we gonna take first, so we don't get shot?
Always RBCA first.
Okay, good. Just wanna make sure.
So, sorry, Chair, through you, can we also potentially have direction to take that sign down, so we stop
yeah.
getting phone calls about. Because I think it's very misleading, to be honest, so.
And
And I don't need it in a resolution, is everybody fine, like it's okay, okay.
It's almost.
And we'll
Just wanna
amend
make
our website as well to remove it from available
Yeah.
plans.
I agree with that, because it is one of those things that I know, you talked about 10 years ago, when you came, I remember first coming on council, going like, what are we gonna do with this? And
Lots of things.
we discussed it, and then COVID hit, And then I know when Kirsten came on, that was one of the things that we discussed, but she was very busy cleaning up a lot of other things too, before getting to this one, so I appreciate it. We get to this one as well, and now we can maybe have a direction.
So I'll have a conversation with our VCA and see what I can come up with there, get some feedback from them, if they would be supportive, and then.
To the county and do that.
Yeah.
Our next trails meeting. It's in September. So we can get back to that, but that'd be our next trails meeting, and then the next one after that would be January.
Okay.
But that being said, like we're too late to start any construction, but I think if we start going forward with something along those lines, I don't know, when the AIS.
So, yeah, so Chair through you, so it depends on the availability of the people and how much they have on their schedule, but keeping in mind that we're also gonna have to approach property owners. Because people that own, no, they own property
That's what
between
we
us
do,
and geez, so we're gonna have to do something with that. So it's not gonna be a quick process unless somebody says, yep, we want to sell, there you go. Because there is owners between us.
There is rights of passage along the roadway. I know talking at the county as well, some like you never know with, because that's a provincial highway too as well. If they would be agreeable to things or not.
I was gonna say, be mindful that normally they don't like snowmobiles going beside provincial highways.
Yeah, so
So
we're saying, hey, once you get by this point, then more over somewhere else, it's still part of their, maybe, I don't know.
sometimes, but I just think that, like, keep in mind, there's gonna be some discussions needed to be had. With
Yeah.
property owners.
So just a question about that. If we try to change the designation of something, designation of something of that, can they come back on us and say, I bought this for a specific purpose? Either you buy me out or I sue you.
Or,
We're using them.
like, if we purchase it for the use, like, we purchase land from them.
No, what I'm saying is they already own the property.
Mhm.
Now, we've suddenly said this isn't an industrial park, we take down the signs and all that kind of stuff, and they go, I bought this because I thought it was gonna become an industrial. Park." How do we deal with them? Is it we're buying them out? Or,
They didn't, only the one person purchased from us, the other people never. purchased from me. Yeah, so the one person that purchased, so this is the report that's gonna come back in relation, because they have registered agreements on title that they actually had to develop within a certain amount of time, and they didn't.
okay,
So we're gonna have that whole discussion, as well. But good question, because there is, yeah, absolutely something there.
yeah, then it's so long the building's tension.
Yeah.
So you said something.
Right, so we have pretty good sort of direction and ideas as we're going with it, which is great. So thank you for that person. So, what is our option? Maybe option. Option A.
But everyone is in agreement to remove the sign and take it down.
Yeah, we don't need to, we have a
No.
resolution, right?
No,
We're just taking it
if you guys are all
We're taking down the sign, good.
good for it.
Good. Any other questions? So moved by Reed Jennings, second by Councilor Bass, the council direct staff to proceed with option A below in relation to the Montague Business Park. All in favor? Next up, Ian, are you talking about the, our lawnmower? He comes up, this is the lawnmower that I remember when Karen and I first came on council, like, we didn't realize that, we didn't own a lawnmower. So, I think we cut some grass, which is good, and, we had done some subbing and that kind of stuff, but this was a, so, that, you know, this was sort of an economical option that we got, but it's like, well beaten up.
Yeah.
Take it away.
Yeah, so the lawnmower, was purchased in 2019 for roughly $7,500. It gets a lot of use, like, we probably use it 15 hours a week roughly, all summer, every year, and it's just a residential unit. So staff believes that it would be better to go to a similarly sized commercial unit. Since 2021, we put in over $4,200 worth of repairs into the mower, and the guys have been doing a lot of welding, and it's just falling apart. So it looks like it's probably gonna last the rest of this season, and so we would like to get approval to include in the budget for next year. It gets replaced up to 20,000. But if it doesn't last, we need to either replace it this year or repair it. Before replacing it next year anyway. So the recommendation would be that we get approval to replace the mower with the commercial unit this year instead of waiting until next year, as opposed to. And yeah, and that, it does. If the mower fails, we'll bring another report back to replace it.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so Chair through you. So basically what we're looking for is approval if it fails this year. If not, we're gonna wait. And it was already gonna be included in the 2025 budget because it was set to be replaced. And honestly, we prefer to keep our old one and not have to put a new one somewhere whenever we're gonna be short of storage. So the guys have repaired it. As of right now, I think it was over fueling itself, so it was backfiring all the time. They changed a bunch of filters and things like that as well, but basically we're looking for, the grass has been growing like crazy this year, that if it fails, we can replace it, but we think it's gonna last. So it'll just be in the 2025 budget if it does not fail. We're hoping it doesn't. We don't want to store it brand new anymore.
Sure. Jim?
I got just two quick questions. I think that's the proper way to go, is to get one like. If we can wait, they will go on sale very shortly in the next month or so, because a lot of people don't want to keep them sitting there all year with the snowmobiles and stuff. Okay. And the other thing is, the people using them have to make sure they're responsible too.
Yeah.
I'm not saying they aren't here, I'm just saying, sometimes people are just a little careless.
Yeah.
And I'm not picking any of the stuff. I've seen sometimes in the town of Smith Falls, I've seen it. So I'm just saying, if we only got one, if we're gonna spend a good amount of money on one, which we should, let's try and look after it. That's all.
So Chair through you. So keeping in mind as well, like as we begin to expand the 22 acres, it's more grass, right? So, and understand what you're saying. Normally these units are ran by students, and not public works, like our full time for that. So, we hear you. And
I wasn't done with the first.
but I think it is, I don't think a surprise to council that, you know, a residential unit really lasted us a substantial amount of time. Again, when it gets surplus, we'll still get the money for it, but we need to work towards the commercial one.
I mean, I think, yeah, when we got this one, it was obviously the residential, and it was that exact cost. Was the biggest thing was like we think we needed one more. Like this is something that we need to buy, so we got it. And now we've proven that, yeah, we need even better, like a bigger one or better per se, but we clearly need a lot more, so I would say. So, yeah. Thanks again. I think, yeah, hopefully it lasts.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll discuss the budget. Like it's like the budget. Works, but that's some stores. Yeah.
Hopefully the grass starts slowing down. They shouldn't. Next time here.
All right. Any other question from council at all? So moved by Councillor Bass, seconded by Councillor Crabtree, that council approved the use of reserves to replace the zero-turn lawnmower in 2024 as opposed to a scheduled replacement date of 2025. The lawnmower fails and requires extensive repair costs. We have anything that kind of costs extensive repair, and we'll throw $100 into it.
Yeah, we're not putting $1,000.
So we've got that professional back. And that's the council approves the use of $20,000 from reserves to purchase a commercial grade lawnmower as opposed to the current residential lawnmower as the township mows a substantial amount of grass. And the council directs staff to bring back a report on the mower fails and replace prior to the 2025 budget to inform council of total costs. All in favor? Thank you. Next up is the usage of the Leonard County tourism grants.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So proactively planning for 2025 already. 2025 is going to be a big year for our local Montague and District Senior Forget-Me-Not Club. It's going to be their 50th anniversary. What I'm recommending to council this evening, I've already reached out to the county. So every year they do a $5,000 tourism grant, which we have applied for. the last several years. One was to upgrade our road signs, including the fire ban on off. This past year, 2024, we got a portable stage that's coming up for Rosedale Hall. And what I'm recommending for council is that you go ahead and approve that we apply for the 2025 grant to assist the Montego District Seniors Forget Me Not in hosting a bigger function for their Veterans Day for their 50th anniversary. And the reason why we're coming ahead is because we need to book talent ahead of time. Normally it's in August that it's their event. I think that it would be important for council and staff to every year they put one on and they organize it and they run it and they work it. I think it'd be important for us to maybe put it on for them and let them enjoy the event more so than running it as a collaboration to say thank you. So my recommendation to council is that you go ahead and proactively approve the application so that we can start booking some items with the group. Obviously it'd be a collaboration. I think that 50-year anniversary for any club is a big thing, and I think that we should support that.
So I think it's a great suggestion, especially with the big milestone for next year. So, council, any questions or comments or?
100% good idea.
It's great use of it. On that note, everybody's on favor. That's good. So moved by Councillor Crabtree and seconded by Councillor Johnson, the council direct staff to submit an application for the 2025 Leonard County Tourism Grant, if and when available in the spring of 2025, to be used towards the 50th anniversary festivities for the Montague and District Seniors Forget Me Not Club, and the council staff organize the event on behalf of and in conjunction with the group politics. And my understanding from the county, like there's still lots of flavor to continue with that. Everything else, right? Like you get the same flavor from that, right? So I think that's good. So, next up is also you're going to be flashing speed radar acceptance.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So included in the 2024 budget, which we discussed earlier, was the purchase of 2 flashing speed traffic calming signs. So they have been purchased. Public Works has been putting them up, and Ian's been keeping track. And you can see the vehicles slowing down, that it is working as a traffic calming measure. So we're recommending, we have a couple of areas from the Police Service Board that they provided the recommendation to council to purchase these to start there with the traffic calming. One is for Rosedale Road North. One was for Ferguson Tetlock, but we also have a number of complaints about Rosedale Road South near the Forget Me Not Club and the Hall. So they've been placed there, and you could see that they did work as a traffic calming for majority of people, keep in mind. So I think for us is we had a surplus last year. We're recommending to council that because we have a couple of problem areas, we also have received complaints in a number of incidents on Roger Stevens Drive as well. So Ian has gotten approval from the county to put up some posts on Rosedale Road South. So they've determined that we could just transfer them out. And same thing with Rosedale Road North and Ferguson Town. So we would also be looking for the Roger Stevens potentially for that location as well. But it is recommended to council. It seems that it does exist in the traffic calming, and maybe we should have some additional signs.
I like these. I remember we went to a conference years ago and we kind of came back and we were like, we need to have these. Like I did say, we started purchasing them like that 5 years ago. And I think they're so how many will this give us then in total then?
4.
This will give us 4 of those, and then also we have the we call them the Black Cats. 2 of the Black Cats too as well, which is the
incognito.
It gives us the
traffic.
Gives us the information without manipulating
The truth.
The truth, yeah. So like this gives us that all of that sort of tools to work on the traffic calming stuff and also to make sure we have the data. It also counts data too as well.
Right.
So we're continuously updating our we have something we've never had before is average daily traffic on every single road in our township, which is gonna help as we go into our roads, needs to as well. So these things help in many ways with traffic calming and everything else too as well. So I think it's great. They're really not that expensive for what they do. So any comments from council at all?
I think we can't do anything more about the police, so if we can do something to help assist and bring down the speed in areas where it's required, or at least help out if it's a good idea, because we can't pay for any more police services, so.
We talked about that, the as well, you know, policing segment, as much as we want to be out there. I think I alluded to it earlier about some of the rise in the different crimes and crimes and like what they're dealing with. Like we'd like to be out there doing more speed trap things, but like we are like overwhelmed with the amount of other stuff, you know, or people that we catch. And there was one that was just recently that in a matter of a month, he was arrested at least 4 different times. So like, I mean, like it's like that's what they're doing, right? So like, I mean, as much as we want to have more of that, it's that's the true reality of this is why we need to do these kind of things. So it's very valid.
It's just chatting with the OPP from Kempville at a Chamber of Commerce meeting in Merrickville. They said exactly that. They're actually reducing their traffic divisions and stuff because they need them somewhere else.
Yeah.
Wherever it is, but that's not a priority to them. It just isn't. So
There's bigger stuff that they'd like it to be.
Oh, yeah.
They'd like it to be a bigger. They would prefer to do that, but they're dealing with.
yeah, because they're mostly now just what the staff sergeant was saying is that they'll target for a couple days and then they're gone and they won't come back there for months. Yeah, it's just he said it's just the reality of the situation. They don't have enough officers and they got to put them where they're needed.
So that's why the big cities right now, they're doing the
Speed
speed cameras, it's twofold. It replaces the police that can't be there doing that, and then it's revenue stream.
So a huge. So we discussed that actually, and we had a presentation from one of the speed groups too as well to talk about that. There wasn't a big flavor to bring that into the county. And a lot of it is because you don't really have, you're not getting like true information, or like you might be getting something that's going through the zone that's too quickly, but there's no there. And I know on a side note, like I brought that up to them saying, like, is there any way that you have like sort of your AI stuff that shows that there's like kids in the road, and that's when you're going to ticket people? And they're like, we don't have that. That's a kind of a cool idea. And I kind of said, well, I want to make sure I get. But anyways, but I mean, like, but I think that's why we weren't really the appetite wasn't there, and I don't think in the area where the appetite's there for that, because it just tickets it for everybody.
I don't think people really speaking like, because I can speak from a friend who got one. It's kind of funny. I laughed at him a little bit. It was in downtown Ottawa, but he was doing like 12 over. But which is really not that fast when you're talking about it, but it's everyone that does it, and in mass populations, like for the numbers that we're talking, I think it would be almost redundant.
The chair through you. So keep in mind that the data that we collect from our traffic signs, we give that to the OPP.
Yeah.
So that is where then they would target those areas and sit there and do those types of things. So we do try and work with them in relation to that. And they take that data and they use it to try and put their forces in the best possible place that they can. So it's a collaboration as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good points, yeah. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, so moved by. Option 1. Yeah, option 1, okay. Moved by Councillor Johnson and second by Ryu Jennings, that council approve option 1 as presented this date as information in relation to the purchase of additional flashing speed radar signs. All in favor? And that's carried. Next up is the Rosedale Hall upgrades. Awesome.
Thank you, Chair. So again, we've spoken about Rosedale Hall this evening. You had mentioned how rentals are up, and we did provide numbers in here as well about the rentals being up. So it is a facility that back when you guys did your original strategic plan, some of you were not on, in 2018, there was a lot of questions around Rosedale Hall and whether to keep it, get rid of it, use it for something else. And the surveys really came back that people wanted to keep it. So from that time frame, there was a lot of grants applied for. I know I was here as a treasurer at that time, and we got the first OTF grant, and it started from there. So in the report, there's been a lot of work done at Rosedale Hall through grants and through funding, including the person installed the play structure, all the floor fixing inside, new flooring in Rosedale, new well, capping the old well, reserves paid for the new septic system at Rosedale in 2021. 2022, there was the CCRF funding. So there was the purchase and install of the Generac generator, the install of the Wi-Fi, and the beginning of the black chain link fencing at around most of the perimeter of the play area. The ISIT COVID, so that purchased and installed new windows and doors and accessible door buttons at the hall. The bar renovations was a $3,000 budget line, which looked fabulous because the fire association also volunteered their time to do all the carpentry work on the bar, which is lovely. So the new roof on the old post office building was from reserves of $4,400. COVID funds of 30 completed the 8-foot chain link black fencing on the back side of the property towards the neighbors. In 2023, we got another OTF grant, which we did the whole parking lot, installed drainage, did the walking path, the half-court basketball, and the install of the accessible thing. This year, we did the $5,000 from Monarch County to get a portable stage for Rosedale Hall, and we have budgeted $5,000 for noise barriers for this year. Well, that's what brings us to the discussion point of, so staff have been in discussion and would like to move forward over the Christmas break. It's the biggest break we have with nothing going on at the hall. To remove the old corner stage, which is kind of in a bad spot whenever you're looking straight. So we'd have the portable stage, so we'd remove the stage. We can't get the flooring that's in the hall anymore, but we can take what's in the coat room and the entrance and put it where the stage is so that that whole room's the same. And then we'll have like an entrance tile look. It's going to look a little different, but it'll be the vinyl flooring, not tile. We're going to repair the walls because it's been used. It's been, and not major damage, but used. It's been used. And paint and install the noise barriers. So staff some have volunteer time. Some of the custodians will be paid at a nominal fee to do that work. And then we'll have a contractor remove the stage and install the new flooring, peel up, which we've already checked with them and they said, yes, they can do that. Take up the other flooring and place it. So we're recommending that we do that over the Christmas break at an estimated cost of maybe $15,000. Again, we've had hundreds of thousands of dollars in grants. We want to continue to keep the hall up because we are getting those rentals and get it looking fresh again for the 2025 years. So my recommendation is for council to approve that use and that we can go ahead and start. We've already planned for it in the hopes that council is going to approve it, but that I can solidify to get everybody on the same page during that.
Great sort of like sort of history back of going through like it was one of those things that it was pretty decrepit that it was like what are we gonna do with this as we were going forward, and really this has been like the best case scenario as far as costs go and getting the best bang for the buck. We're and with you in the sense of that we don't want it to go back to the condition that we just dumped it. So I think that's a valid point, and we didn't just dig it out of the condition, we made it even better. So I think that was a big win. So thank you for all that information. That's great. Any questions from council as far as going ahead with this?
I have a question on maybe the reason it's not on here is you have another idea that's coming out. It's not part of this. So again, you can slap me later. And everything there has been fantastic, and I've spent a lot of time there with the rec committee and everything else. Do we have any plans for placing that stone? Because I'm telling you, as a person who uses the damn thing, yeah.
Chair through you. So we have done some grant applications and been unsuccessful on the stove because the current stove that's there is about a $12,000 stove. I'm not sure for the amount that the kitchen gets used, that we need a $12,000 stove for that location. So the plan was to include that in 2025 budget.
Like, maybe we could get like a normal, even normal stove would work better than what's
Yeah.
currently there. I get that one's commercial, but commercial, half of it works.
So I think we plan to not only replace the stove, but also the wall unit ovens are very old, and maybe not overly energy efficient. So the plan is, I didn't want to ask for everything at once, Gerald, but if council wants to give it to us, I was gonna bring it in the budget, but I mean, that's up to you folks, because we do plan to satisfy grants, like the big picture of the kitchen is still to apply for additional grants, because we need a commercial size sink, and those types of things. So the big plan for that is to still do that, and to try and find grants, because it would be nice to get the big industrial size sink, because the current ones are too small for our big pot and all those things. But I'll take direction from the council if.
I'm not trying to like, it's a spot that's bringing in revenue that people can use. But if people want to use it, they need the services to be able to use. And currently I'm not saying we need everything, but I'm saying at least the stove, you could look at replacing that. And then as the other stuff comes up that we can, it's just that stove, we make sure to turn that breaker off, because it's currently has one element that does not work and has loose wire.
Just share through you, because the breaker gets shut off because renters have left it on after it left.
And currently, if I'm not mistaken, and there's an element that's.
I have the knob. Yeah. And just for that, so there's a discussion, I know it's come up from several groups saying, why don't you get propane? We will not ever recommend propane because renters leave it on. So, I mean, by all means, the council wants to approve the purchase of a stove to get the old one replaced. We know that it's in bad shape. Most people don't rent it for the kitchen. MRCC uses it the most, so I understand the frustration. So by all means, if you want to include a couple extra $1,000 for us to get that done as well, that's fine.
I'm just saying.
Spend a $12,000.
No, but I'm saying at least maybe you look into it, because you're looking for a residential stove. There are surplus deals, there are, like, we can probably get a good deal on something that's 1,000 times better for $600.
We should go for a good,
I know, but
like a high-end
my
residential.
point was the $600 one would currently do better than what's there. And definitely a couple thousand would go a long way.
I think exactly where, I think it's the direction we want to go, because I know it's been looked at as far as trying to find grants for those, and I think it's a good budgetary, it's like doing it now or doing it a few months from now in our budgetary sort of discussions. I think it's like maybe in my opinion, a more appropriate time to do it. I agree with you. I think it's budgetary time.
We can definitely push that into budgetary if that's what everyone wants to do. I'm just saying at some point it should be on something, as opposed to just keep. I've been in there for a year and a half, and it's been the same way for a year and a half.
We have applied to some of them, it just hasn't been successful, but it's been for like a complete almost kitchen redo. So yeah, I whatever comes in direction.
I have Christmas.
Well, Christmas,
I'm looking for waiting for like an accessory, a budget with that, kind of discussing like, and then having a plan, say, that's, which is like.
So the only thing I'm gonna say is I believe the MRCC has a dinner night in November,
they have a few.
right? So, yeah,
You guys have Christmas parties, use the kitchen.
right, but it's catered.
But they could use it once. I'm just saying, the kitchen gets used.
I mean, if
If
it's up to council, but if you're gonna approve it in budget, you can approve it now and then MRCC.
I'd like to see it done. Getting lawnmowers, we're getting everything else.
Something that we use as a council and rec committee,
That actually brings revenue in.
and maybe electric candle.
I'm trying to get more.
I'll bring that up the other day.
So what would you like to provide? 'Cause I honestly think, I don't think that we need a $12,000 commercial one, but I think you need a high grade residential unit. To see how that works over the next couple of years.
So why don't you just,
Bring pricing,
Let's get some pricing very back.
yeah, and then we can talk about it again.
because if we need to postpone it, if we need,
Yeah,
if we need to postpone it, we can postpone it.
Yeah.
If it's a reasonable number or.
and I'd like to just know a number.
Okay, I'll bring it to September 3rd.
Okay, perfect.
Good?
I think so. That sounds good.
Very good.
Thank you.
We all met in the middle.
Look at you guys.
Any other questions from council?
That's good.
Daryl, you're hilarious. No, yeah, I think that's great. No other questions. I mean, I think we're like we said, we're moving in the right direction for the all. It definitely is a lot better, and we're getting the rentals to support it too as well. I remember just to touch on it, even with the points back in that, you know, from when we have this survey and talk to people like, yeah, we don't want to lose it because I think it was one of our only like sort of assets we have, but there wasn't a lot of interest in people saying they actually wanted to use it. But I don't want to lose it, but I don't want to use it. Now it's sort of, I think, changing, saying, well, we're glad you kept it. Now I'm willing to use it. So I think we made it so people got to go like before, well, I don't want to lose it, but it's too ugly for me to use. But now it's like, hey, I want to use it now. So I think that's a big difference. We've changed sort of, I bet if we did this again, we'd have more people that say, yeah, actually, I'd be willing to rent it, or I want to use it now because of what it
A
is.
lot of people are using it right now, and we have people that are saying, you know, weddings next year and stuff like that, so it's a great place. And then over and above that, it's also a place for emergency radio. So having that be functional, usable, and if you had to use it for cooking, kitchen, just everything, we have the generator now to service that, and it'd be just great to have.
Yeah, like you say, wedding, I don't think there's a nicer hall besides, like, the only thing I compare that's as nice as maybe the golf course in Smiths Falls. They've done some great renovations there too as well. I think like us and that place are really the two nicest places to have any type of those events or weddings, and having a play structure that was great for weddings too, because that's where you kick the kids to when the parents are trying to have fun. So I mean, I think it's overall we're on the right side.
And all the MRCC events with the amount of people that have attended, and not local people, like people from Ottawa and all over, and the compliments for getting about what a lovely hall.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's bringing them in.
Super. Great news from that hall as well. Really turned a sour grape into some really nice wine. So moved by Reed Jennings and seconded by Councilor Bass that council approve option 1 for the Rosedale Hall upgrades, and the council approves the use of recreation reserves and the amount of $15,000 if 2024 surplus cannot fund the project, and looking into a stove. All in favor?
We're gonna look back, it's gonna be Gerald.
Next up is the Carroll Road crossing update that Reed and Allison.
Thank you, Chair. So this is an update for council and for the public in relation to the Carroll Road crossing. So back in March of 2023, there was information on the agenda in relation to an article on the Inside Ottawa Valley News in relation to the crossing and the stoppage of the trains at the Carroll Road crossing. Council directed us at that time to put up some signs with a phone number on it for people to call in the event that it's stopped, and to also collaborate with North Lonsdale on that, and we did. We also sent a letter to the local MP and the Ministry of Transportation. We did not receive any response in relation to our letters. So then in June of 2024, the Reed received an email from the newly appointed CP Rail Director of Government Affairs and Communications of Ontario introducing themselves, and she provided it to myself. We thought that was a great opportunity to meet with the Government Affairs and Communications of Ontario. So we did meet with them. It was a good meeting. He definitely took in what we provided. So we provided a number of the complaints, photos of ambulance and fire being stopped at the rails, and all kinds of background information. So on July 31st, he responded so he followed up with the operations team and, they basically are saying that they can't completely prevent it, but mitigate the length of times. So they provided us a new phone number that should be on our sign. What we need the public to do is they need at least 5 phone calls anytime that it's stopped. That triggers then their internal to then investigate. So if there's 5 calls for the same blockage, that triggers their internal. So we need people to call if they're stopped at that crossing, to make sure that they're getting that information. So what he has provided is that they have come up with some directives for the operational crew and guidelines to basically what they're supposed to do when they're leading up to getting to the crossing for a quicker staff changeover. So they're supposed to basically contact them leading up to and ahead of time to make sure that people are prepared for the change crew. They are there's new directives on the changeover and how they should be completed to be more efficient. If they can't meet the directives, they are to change over further down the line to prevent holding up the Carroll Road for extended periods. So the director also noted that they're going to monitor, we should monitor, keep track and follow up. So obviously it's like anything, at least we're getting a response. They've sat down, they've met with us, they followed up. I think this is definitely, it's going to be a collaboration moving forward. It's going to be a joint effort. So at least I'm hoping that this is somewhat of a positive direction moving forward and that we do have a contact to monitor and keep up with on this.
Thank you also. Yeah.
I just have a quick question. I know what they're trying to do much better, but is there any chance that they, like when you go on the bridges there in Smith Falls, you get a flashing light here and there, is there any chance that the railroad would put one at Carroll Road there, Jordan, and put one just coming out of Smith Falls? So if the fire truck was coming, and they knew they're going to be there, it would set off that, geez, we're backing the train up, even if it's 5 minutes. It would save them, they could say, okay, well, we can't go that way. I think that would be great, and it's all done by solar power. So that would cost some money, but that might solve a lot of the
Probably
problems.
that might show a big thing.
Yeah.
Because I mean, it's crazy when you're coming up that hill. Like, you can't see that railway until like you're coming down Carroll. Like you pass Carroll, you go up the hill, you come to the hill, and every time you go over that hill, you're like, please be okay.
I just thought,
And like it's like,
would say, you make a job and thought that went past it, but I mean, it works great in it now.
So try to do, I think it's a great idea. We pay for them. So the township pays, we pay for them. We pay the cost of that on a
If they're
monthly
trying,
basis.
if they're trying those,
Yeah, so those are our fees. So I mean, we could ask, but I mean, I'm sure they'd be happy to install if we're paying the monthly fee that we do on that.
it's just thought.
I think it's a great
Maybe
idea.
interesting
It's
to know.
just whether he's willing to,
what is the cost? What is the cost?
we're going to $1,200 a month.
What?
Yeah, I believe so.
It's crazy.
I believe. I'll get back to you on that for sure, but I think it's absolutely an option. I think that what you're saying makes complete sense.
Especially with EMS,
Mhm.
we have to have some option. Even if we can shave off 5
Fire
minutes.
truck gets going, let's get turned around.
Yeah.
If it gets parked way down and all of a sudden.
Yeah, we can.
They just stop at the train.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
buses are a big part too as well.
Oh, yeah.
I know lots of school buses, and Healy's has been
Yeah.
great with giving the information about that too as well, like where they, like buses have to wait.
And it would warn it in 5 minutes, it would warn it probably 5 minutes before, so that worked out great for.
Yeah, so I think that it's a great option, honestly, it's never really been an option.
Yeah.
So we can absolutely reach out.
Seems
Well, I don't want to thought of it. We called Jill.
So I think that, I think that's great because I mean, like, I'm glad we have this level of collaboration and we are discussing. I like the problem is like. As well saying, well, we're going to try our best to move a little faster. I mean, really, the answer is that they move up their transfer station further up. It's like I mean, they openly admitted saying that if it was a long delay, we could do that. Well, that really to me is the option as well. Because it's like once again, this road is not even a back road that sees like 50 cars a day, right? I mean, this is literally one of our busiest roads in our entire township. So like it's and when we have any type of detours, which we dealt with was a gong show because
15 always detours.
because there was a train stop and then there was a backup and it literally almost backed up to Kelly Jordan Road. So like it was crazy. So I think we got to be on it. And I think, sorry, what were you gonna say?
I was on the police shut down the highway.
Yes.
I think the other side too as well is like, if the media is listening to this one and they want to put this back in the paper of where it is, and also to make sure that we are encouraging the residents to make those phone calls, because the numbers we have, and this is going to be advantageous to us. So like, once again, if that wants to be, you know, if the media is listening to this part of our meeting and they want to put that in the newspaper, we would be greatly appreciated to make sure that we're getting that word into as well, so.
Chair, I just want to clarify, does council want me to reach out in relation to the flashing light and then potentially look at options and costing and things like that?
Yeah, I think it's great.
I have it down. I just want to make sure that we're doing that.
They might surprise you, you might come back
Yeah, and say,
and say,
well,
"Look, this might help the problem.
Some good feedback.
Work with this, because this is the problem you're creating. So
Yeah.
work with us to help out those people that are on there too as well. So I think that's great, yeah.
If this guy's new and he might help, he might say, yeah, here, we're going.
Gerald had a great idea.
And Allison for sitting down with him too as well with that meeting too as well. That was, it was important, so I think it's good. Moved by Councillor Guthrie and second by Councillor Johnson, that council accepts the updated on Carroll Road crossing as information. All in favor? So before we shut her down, do we have any burning questions on the online world? Nothing from the online. Hold on, for anything from the audience at all?
I do.
Oh, wow.
Want to know the lawn, roughly how much grass do you have? You know, like any idea, like how many acres? Is it 20, like,
We have 2 cemeteries that we cut. We have Rosedale Hall here,
yeah,
dry hydrants. We're gonna have the 22 acres coming up.
and is there gonna be soccer fields or anything there?
We don't
in
have the
near future?
soccer field, the school board has the soccer field, 'cause it's on their property.
Just wondering because of, depending on how big things get over there, like, is one more gonna be enough? Are we gonna be looking at another one down the road? Or like size of deck on the mower, like for substantial cutting?
Yeah, so I can speak to that. So right now at the 22 acres, we get the brush hog in a couple times a year to keep that down. So we wouldn't be cutting necessarily the whole thing right now. We would do that and then keep some nice cut. Our trailer only allows for maximum 60-inch cut. So we would also have to look at a new trailer if that was the case. So right now we're trying to keep it within 60-inch. But yes, depending on the growth and depending on what happens over there. potentially.
Because even if like you do turn that into a park and ride or anything like that, will
Yeah.
likely be grass to cut things.
Yeah, so potentially, we might have to.
Another about the trail, or the parking lot for the trail. The CP has that truck they use to push empty carts into. I'm not sure if they use that whole track, but it might be worth if you were in discussions with them anyways, or somebody from there, if they need that full amount of track, because if your property butts back of that, they might be able to.
That's been brought up in the past.
Like use, even if it's, 300 feet of it or something
It
like
wasn't,
that.
and there not any interest whatsoever of
Giving up that.
that was brought up, before, like a few years ago. and
Because
it's
we
like,
talked about it.
Yeah. Good question, though.
And the overall, is that gonna be on 2x2x4 like concrete blocks, or you pouring footing and foundation and everything?
So we're getting pricing for a couple of options. So one is to have frost walls, which we probably won't do because we have a lot of rock here. One is for blocks and one is for a 2x2 on grade. So we're getting a couple pricing options. The frost wall will obviously be the most expensive and probably not realistic for us to hang on the rock.
Council, nothing. That's good. This was your meetings and also like one of the big ones to get through everything, and
We did it.
we did it. Once again, the discussion, great ideas. That's what makes us. And also the staff just setting us up for success is also a big portion of it as well. So, thank you. What's that? Comments? You didn't want to say.
Can you make that point?
Trying to get the right in there.
No, we're gonna go to 9:08.
I know.
Well, the betting is. Oh, they don't bet here.
We're going over, this is like,
Yes, very true. Yeah.
So. I said things are gonna die, so. Moved by Councillor Johnson and seconded by Reed Jennings, that the committee of the whole meeting for August 6, 2024 now be adjourned at. So it's 9:00. All in favor? That's good.
I'm interested.
Doesn't matter.